On the windswept shores of Massachusetts in the early 18th century, two cousins, Samuel and John Adams, stood at the crossroads of history. The streets of Boston echoed with the footsteps of patriots and loyalists alike, each side jostling for dominance in a land teetering on the edge of revolution. The scent of saltwater melded with the distant cries of street vendors, painting a picture of a colony alive with passion and uncertainty. In the hallowed halls of Harvard, Samuel, with fire in his belly, absorbed the revolutionary ideas that would shape his destiny. Meanwhile, John, with a lawyer's precision, argued the principles that would become the bedrock of a new nation. Their discussions, both public and private, became legendary, capturing the essence of a burgeoning nation's spirit. As the Sons of Liberty plotted in darkened rooms and the first shots of the revolution rang out, it was evident that this was more than a mere colonial rebellion. It was a clash of ideologies, a struggle for the soul of the nation. At its heart were two men, kin by blood, but often divergent in thought, both determined to shape the destiny of the United States. In the aftermath, as the smoke cleared and a new nation emerged, the Adams' influence was undeniable. Were they simply products of their Puritan upbringing, destined to lead? Or were they architects of their fate, driven by a vision for their homeland? How did their legacies, intertwined with their beliefs, pave the way for the birth of the Democratic and Republican parties? Join us on this episode of Historical Quarrels as we dive deep into the lives and times of Samuel and John Adams. Guided by the wisdom of Voltaire, who said, "History is the record of the past and prophecy of the future." Let's uncover the roots of America's political foundations and familial ties that bound them. Welcome back to Historical Quarrels, everyone. Thanks for being here and listening to today's episode. And as always, if you are new here, this show is very NSFW, and I wouldn't recommend listening to it next to little children, whose precious ears shouldn't be sullied by my vulgar and crude language. Big announcement, this show officially has an editor/sound guy. His name is Danny, and we love him here. Can't wait to see how he's able to help this show improve. At the end of today's episode, I will be reading off some emails, and we have our first ever voice message that was sent to us. That'll be cool. Stick around for that. Danny will be a big help with that. If you like this show, keep on sending us messages and spreading it to your friends and family. Honestly, share it with your friends and family, regardless if you think they would like it. Force them to listen to it if you have to. Lock them to a radiator in their basement and put some headphones in their ears. And even if they start crying and begging for you to stop, just keep making them listen until, while they're listening to it, you feed them. And then anytime they're not listening to it, you starve them for multiple days. So you end up Pavloving them into loving the show. That's how I'd like to gain future listeners, is by force and not by me actually having to do any real work on the show. I want to be lazy about it. So if we can just Pavlov people into loving it, that'd be awesome. Or, just share an episode with them and tell them what you think about it. Or you can just leave a review on Apple or wherever you listen to the show and, not get arrested for kidnapping and torturing people. So we do want to try and get up to 100 ratings for the show. It would be really awesome, and it would help us grow even more than we already are. So if you haven't done so already, please go leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get to listen. And then just send me an email telling me that you finished it. And once you finished it, I will send an email back with a little smiley face saying, "Good job. You did good. You did good." No, I mean, if you send me an email, I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you. We can get to know each other more. That'll be really cool. Also, if you haven't already listened to my other show, Hard Homies, you should 100% go do that after this episode and give it a try. But anyways, on to today's episode. We'll be going over events that happened right after last week's episode, and then we are going over the life of John and Samuel Adams, two cousins whose lives would be crucial in shaping America into what it becomes during and after the main historical quarrel today of the Revolutionary War. And if you're new, this essentially is going to be a series that I am doing. If you're brand new to listening to this series is on the Republican and Democratic parties, their origins, foundations, and quarrels. I'm doing it through the lens of multiple quarrels and multiple lifetimes of people to kind of demonstrate, where they're coming from, why they are the way they are now here in America, and how they've developed and changed over time. And we'll be getting close to modern times with it as well. So anyways, get your muskets and wigs ready for today's revolutionary historical quarrel. You are listening to Historical Quarrels. All right, so before we get into new things, let's briefly recap a few events from last week's episode. So after that, we'll get into the Revolutionary War. So today we're starting out with the Mayflower Compact. When the Pilgrims embarked on their perilous journey across the Atlantic, they sought not only religious freedom, but also an opportunity to establish a society on their terms. If you remember from last week, a bunch of these pilgrims were Puritans who were escaping the persecutions of the Church of England, wanted religious freedom, and so they essentially wanted to be able to practice their religion freely and force others to practice their religion as well. And so, they went ahead and came up with the Mayflower Compact, which was signed aboard the ship before they even disembarked. This was a testament to their vision for a community rooted in self-governance, collective decision-making, and a commitment to the common good. Governor William Bradford, a signatory and historian of the Plymouth colony, remarked in his journal of Plymouth Plantation, "This day, before we came to harbor, observing some not well affected to unity and concord, but gave some appearance of faction, it was thought good there should be an association and agreement, that we should combine together in one body." He then continued writing in Latin, Ave obscurus deus sine fin vacui ave scuridui obscurus victus mitem alphabet, da mihi servum, cum humilium, potestatiam, uxini debri, humanas antami, et postrimi offrama animas. Which in English translates to Hail the dark god of the endless void, hail Scrooby-Dooby, whose power knows no bounds. Grant unto me, your humble servant, the power to slay all those before me, so that I might offer you more souls. And obviously, as we all know, William Bradford wasn't just a poor orphan who lost his two lovely uncles and wife. He was actually a brutal and vicious space vampire who secretly rules Massachusetts to this very day. Bradford's actual observation underscores the importance placed on unity and consensus building, reflecting the group's Puritan ideals of communal responsibility. The compact began with the words, "In the name of God," which is Scrooby-Dooby. Amen. "We whose names are underwritten, the loyal subjects of our dread sovereign Lord King James, having undertaken for the glory of God and advancement of the Christian faith, and the honor of our king and country, a voyage to plant the first colony in the northern parts of Virginia, do by these presents, solemnly and mutually, in the presence of God and one another, covenant and combine ourselves together into a civil body, politic." The language of the document fused religious commitment with civic responsibility. This blending of faith and governance became a hallmark of Puritan communities. Though brief, the compact set a profound precedent for democratic governance in the New World. John Quincy Adams, reflecting on the compact's significance, asserted that it was the quote-unquote first example in modern times of a social compact or system of government instituted by voluntary agreement, conformable to the laws of nature by men of equal rights and about to establish their community in a new country. Now, obviously, John Quincy Adams, after learning about Greece, would later retract that statement, realizing Athens had done that shit nearly 2,000 years before the Mayflower even happened. So, that or he never did because he was a fucking dumbass and didn't really realize what he was talking about there. He just wanted to, make America's dick look bigger than it actually was, which I get to a point, especially when, you're repping for that country. Anyways, the Mayflower Compact can be viewed as a precursor to the democratic ideals that would shape the American Republic. The emphasis on collective decision-making, the idea of the consent of the governed, and the intertwining of civic and religious duty all echo the principles that would eventually give rise to the Federalist and Democratic Republican parties. Both parties, though differing in their specifics, harken back to the Compact's foundational emphasis on governance through agreement and common purpose. Okay, moving on now, we're going to the 1620s, 1630s. So in the wake of the Pilgrims' initial settlement at Plymouth, the 1620s and 30s saw an influx of English settlers looking for both economic opportunities and a haven from religious persecution. The Church of England and the Catholic Church didn't like people questioning them all that much, and the Puritans were kind of assholes about it. So each new settlement brought its distinct vision for governance, which reflected a blend of old world traditions and the necessities of new world realities. Such realities being, holy shit, I have nowhere to shit. I gotta go dig a hole and shit out, the backyard. We don't have sewer. We don't have sewage over here yet. We don't have that set up. Realities like that, where they can't necessarily do certain things because they just don't have the equipment, the tools, or the people there to do that. So the Massachusetts Bay Colony, founded in 1630, stands out prominently. It was led by John Winthrop. The Puritan settlement sought to create a city upon a hill, which was a beacon of religious purity and moral rectitude. More of moral stick up their asses attitude. If you remember, Anne Hutchinson's is the one who had to deal with Winthrop and all those bastards. So in a sermon abroad, the Arbella, Winthrop proclaimed, "We must consider that we shall be as a city upon a hill. The eyes of all people are upon us." Really making them think that they're way more important than they actually fucking were. This vision emphasized collective responsibility, piety, and an unwavering commitment to the community's religious and moral mission, which was to get everyone to worship the way they worshipped. And, also so that they can escape people forcing them to worship how they didn't want to worship. They didn't see the hypocrisy back then. It didn't matter. They were right because God said they were right. Such ideals deeply influenced the colony's governance, which married religious principles with civil authority, very much bringing over the concept of, we are the only correct religion, fuck the rest of you, over from Europe to America. Maryland, established in 1632 by Lord Baltimore, was intended as a haven for English Catholics. The colony's early governance emphasized religious tolerance, especially highlighted by the 1649 Act concerning religion, which sought to protect Christians from religious persecution. This commitment to religious freedom stood in contrast to the more homogenous religious orientations of colonies like Massachusetts Bay. Really, I think a big part of why they were tolerant is because they realized not a bunch of Catholics were moving over to America yet. And during Bloody Mary's time, they burnt the fuck out of a bunch of Protestants and Puritans. So it would have been dumb to try and force a bunch of people who already disliked you to worship the same as you in that community. We'll get into that a little more here in a bit. Let's focus more on the relations with the Native American groups, as these would vary across the colonies. While some early interactions were characterized by trade and tentative alliances, many led to conflict. For example, the Pequot War of 1636-38 between New England colonists and the Pequot tribe, Pequot. I can't pronounce the words right, I'm sorry. It highlighted the often contentious nature of these relationships. Roger Williams, an advocate for fair dealings with Native Americans, once wrote, "The natives are very exact and punctual in the bounds of their lands, belonging to this or that prince or people. But they weren't exact enough with each colony. It was essentially like a game of telephone, and so over time, the settlers would get confused about where they were allowed to move to. Williams emphasized the ethical and practical importance of respecting indigenous rights and territories, but due to the confusion some people had, no fucking clue that they couldn't settle in some spots. And it would cause fights, like a bunch of fights. An example of this would be, let's say you own a farm and a bunch of land in an area. Okay, now let's say one day your second cousin and his family showed up and asked if he could live there. A little rude to be honest. You're like, whoa, you just showed up out of the fucking blue. But you figure you've got enough land, so why not? And you even got enough money, so you help him out with getting food and getting some contractors out to build a house on your property. So after you do that, some of your second cousin's friends now show up, and they really need help as well. But you still have a fuck ton of land, and so those are okay. But you go ahead and tell your second cousin to let them know not to build in some specific areas. Maybe like on your land, you have a super secret spot where you like to take a shit in every now and then because you like shitting outside in nature and it makes you feel more connected to the earth or something. Now, let's say your cousin tells one friend and then they tell the other friend, but because you were a dumbass and you didn't write any of that shit down because, you felt like you don't have to because it's your cousin and like they are cool and shit and will help make sure the friends aren't being assholes. But they are telling each other and they get a whole bunch of shit mixed up and aren't getting everything exactly right. And so little did you know that a whole bunch of his other friends and your other second cousin moved in near your brother's farmland and have been fucking up shit over there. And by the time you realize it, your cousin's friends moved into your super secret, sacred shitting spot and are now shitting in it. But you don't do anything yet because even though it's your farm, technically it was Grandpa's farm. And even though it was entrusted to you, you remember that Grandpa loved having everyone stay and live with him when he allowed that. And that was like Grandpa's rules. Like, hey, listen, this farm is technically the whole family's. You give it to the family, but like I'm entrusting you to run it, right? So while yes, it's yours in name, you know that the land really isn't yours. And essentially, this is the main issue and problems that would plague the native tribes. They were a lot more moral than the white assholes that came in. And so, yeah, it just became a big game of telephone and not getting a bunch of agreements written down on paper. Not that it would have prevented them getting fucked over, but I think that it still would have helped somewhat. So, the governance structures established during this period bore the hallmarks of the settlers' European origins, but were also uniquely American in their evolution, mostly due to the Puritan influence. Town meetings in Massachusetts, for instance, became a hallmark of democratic governance, allowing freemen to voice their opinions and vote on community matters. Such practices can be seen as early seeds of the democratic ideals that would later form the backbone of American political thought. Oddly enough, one of the meetings that was recorded from back in the 1600s resembles a somewhat more modern town hall format, as there was a dispute by a townswoman by the name of Catherine, who had a dispute with the town's carpenter, Thomas, who would let his horse graze near her home on a shared road between them. And this really pissed her off. And it was so funny that I'm going to read you the transcript. So we have the moderator, right? So he said, "Good evening, townsfolk. We are gathered herein to discourse upon matters perturbing our township. Pray, who seeks the floor?" And then we have Catherine. Honorable moderator, 'tis I, Catherine, who seeks the ear of this assembly. An injustice hath been wrought upon mine household by good man Thomas, an affront most grave and foul. His steed is nightly parked before mine home, disrupting mine peace and fouling mine air. And then we had Thomas, who interrupts. He says, "Respectfully, good woman Catherine, the thoroughfare upon which mine horse doth rest belongs to all under his majesty's rule. I seek not to mar your peace, but merely to utilize a common road." Catherine then responds saying, "Common, thou sayest? Yet surely common decency is lacking in thy actions. Your steed occupies not just the road, but mine peace of mind, sir. It doth insult the very essence of neighborly conduct and soils the liberties for which our fathers ventured to this land." And then Thomas responds saying, "Your words, madam, do sow discord over matters trivial." He's basically saying, like, this is fucking stupid. "In unity and understanding shall our settlement flourish, not in bitter disputes over the mere placement of a beast of burden." And the recorder basically wrote down, many agree, like many in the audience agree. And so the moderator then says, "Good woman Catherine, good man Thomas, let reason prevail. Shall we invoke the wrath and attention of our distant king over such a petty matter? Surely compromise and neighborly understanding shall see us through this trifling impasse." And then Catherine says, "Moderator, I deem this no trifling matter. Shall we let such daily injustices persist, tolerating insolence and incivility in our midst? Nay, if my pleas find no purchase here, then surely the ear of the king shall be more receptive. Maybe Catherine had like access to the king, I guess. And then Thomas says, "'Tis folly, madam, to raise our domestic qualms to the notice of the crown. Our settlement is but a small beacon in the vast expanse of his majesty's domains. Shall we sour a good standing over so minor a discord?" Again, the recorder hears townspeople kind of getting pissed about, like, there's a bunch of people being like, yeah, no, please don't bring the king here. And then Catherine says, "Minor to thee, perhaps, good man Thomas, but 'tis my peace that is shattered by thy beast. And 'tis my hand that shall pen a letter to our sovereign, should this assembly fail to see the gravity of mine plight." And then the moderator says, "Peace, good woman Catherine. Let not wrath dictate our discourse. Let us all seek resolution, not retaliation. Our strength resides in harmony and shared endeavor, not in inviting external might to quell our internal quibbles." And yeah, from there, there's not much else. But anyways, I just thought it was hilarious. Catherine's definitely a Karen for back then. And, I've had uncles whose neighbors would throw similar hissy fits if we parked our car on the side of, like, on their side of the street. Even though, like, the street itself belongs to the city and anybody can park there, they get super pissed. And if, like, anytime we popped in to go visit my uncle, his neighbors almost started a fight with my uncle because of us parking there, and it was ridiculous. So, even back then, grazing horses were a cause of contention. So, through the lens of these formative years, we can trace the lineage of American democratic principles. The interplay of religion and governance, the notions of individual rights juxtaposed with communal responsibilities, and the interactions with indigenous populations really begins to set the stage for ideological debates that would continue towards the Revolutionary War, and would really set the stage for this new American culture. Okay, and now we're going to get into the expansion and governance models that they had. So in the 30s and 40s also marked a period of rapid expansion and transformation for the English colonies in North America. New settlements sprouted, and as they grew, so did the complexity of their governance. This era saw the colonies grappling with the challenges of distant rule from England, while also attempting to establish localized systems of governance that catered to their unique circumstances and populations. A standout example of these embryonic democratic structures was the House of Burgesses in Virginia. It was established as early as 1619, and by the 1630s, it had become a crucial part of Virginia's governance. As the first elected legislative assembly in the New World, it set a precedent for representative governance. So the reason why we have representatives is because of these assholes. Planters, merchants, and other free men of the colony gathered to debate and decide on matters of taxation, land grants, and even relations with Native American tribes. Sir John Popham, a significant figure during this period, asserted, "The colonists should by all means be made and continued free denizens of England, with all the privileges of Englishmen in England." Okay, cool. Meanwhile, religious considerations continued to deeply influence colonial governance. The Maryland Toleration Act of 1649, like I had mentioned earlier, passed by the Assembly of the Maryland Colony, was the landmark piece of legislation that granted religious freedom to all Christians. No longer did you just have to, like you had to deal with Governor Winthrop and worship the way that he interpreted the Bible. You could worship it however you wanted, as long as it was Jesus. This act was particularly noteworthy given the broader context of religious strife and persecution in both Europe and other American colonies. Cecil Calvert, the second Lord of Baltimore and founder of Maryland, emphasized the importance of the act, noting, "It is the duty of the legislator to secure for its subjects the free exercise of their religious beliefs without interference or hindrance." However, as I alluded to earlier, the act was as much a product of political pragmatism as it was of ideological commitment. Maryland, while founded as a haven for Catholics, had a significant Protestant population by the mid-1640s. I'm talking at least anywhere between 50 to 60% were Protestants for the most part. The Toleration Act sought to ensure coexistence and reduce tensions between these religious groups. America didn't need none of that shit that was going on in the Middle East and all the fighting the Pope and most of the Europe was doing to each other at that time. As these colonies expanded and evolved, the seeds of American democratic ideals and governance models continued to germinate. The emphasis on representation, the intertwining of civil and religious liberties, and the commitment to certain foundational freedoms were all pivotal. These early governance experiments laid the groundwork for the broader ideological debates and divisions that would characterize the American political landscape in centuries to come. Really, if you think about it, the people now living here, there, were growing accustomed to not being fucked with by royalty, especially since the royalty would get done away with for a bit in the 1640s. But 20 years later, there was a significant period of recalibration for England and its American colonies. After almost 2 decades of Republican governance under the Commonwealth of England, the monarchy was restored in 1660, and Charles II came to the throne. The restoration signified not only a return to the monarchy, but also a resurgence in the crown's interest in its overseas colonies. With the restoration came a renewed focus on harnessing the economic potential of the American colonies, as they were eager to capitalize on the prosperity and to curb the growing Dutch maritime influence. And those fucking Dutch bastards. Did you know the Dutch don't believe in standing in line? Like, I shit you not. Those fuckers will cut in front of you without a second thought if you let them. Those animals only respond to violence, so I understand the fear the crown had of them. And so the English Parliament enacted a series of laws known as the Navigation Acts. I love my wife's family. They're all super Dutch. So I know. It's kind of funny. I like making fun of them because the Dutch do have weird cultures, like in traditions, when you think about it. Anyways, these acts mandated, the Navigation Acts were passed in 1651. And a few other acts as well. And the acts mandated that goods shipped to and from the colonies must be transported on English or colonial vessels, and certain enumerated products from the colonies could be shipped only to England or other English colonies. Sir Josiah Child, a 17th century English merchant and economist, was among those who championed the acts, arguing that they would boost English commerce and weaken rivals. He said, "It is that which hath made us a nation of rulers, statesmen, soldiers, merchants, and gentlemen, while others remain only a nation of husbandmen, vine dressers, hewers of wood, and drawers of water." Basically, he's like, you're saying it's acts like these that have made us as cool as we are, and why we're rich, and all those other countries suck, and they're third world putrid shitholes. But the American colonists would disagree with them. The impact of the Navigation Acts was twofold. While they bolstered some colonial industries like shipbuilding, they also created significant economic strains by restricting trade and forcing the colonies to rely on often more expensive English goods. And many colonial merchants found their businesses stifled. Samuel Sewall, a Massachusetts judge, noted in his diary the discontent among merchants and planters, mentioning, "Many do loudly complain for the loss of their trade and the dearth of commodities." The Navigation Acts were among the earliest instances where the interests of the English crown and its American subjects began to diverge sharply. While England viewed the colonies as assets to be optimized for the benefit of the motherland, the colonists increasingly saw themselves as distinct entities, deserving of economic autonomy and the right to pursue their prosperity. Essentially, England was just, like if they were playing a video game, they're optimizing this character, but the character gained sentience and wanted to do shit themselves. For them, and, not necessarily bolster the English crown. So this burgeoning sense of American economic and by extension political identity would lay the foundation for more pronounced rifts in the years to come. Essentially, enough people were realizing they were getting fucked over to keep the wealthy in England rich, and were wising up to their schemes. And also learning how to essentially keep them rich here. Keep themselves rich here. So thus, in the larger narrative of American colonial history, the 1660s and the enactment of the Navigation Acts is a very important moment that would sow early seeds of colonial dissatisfaction and really begin to get this rebellion a-brewing, and get everything started a-brewing and getting ready to fight. And then in the 70s, a lot of that would kind of take a backseat for a minute, as we have one of the most intense and bloodiest conflicts in colonial American history, which was King Philip's War. While often seen as a localized conflict in New England, its roots lay deep in the expanding ambitions of English settlers and the existential challenges they posed to the Native American ways of life. That's right. You hear the name King Philip and you probably think, is it the French? And while yes, technically the French did team up with the Native Americans here a little bit. They called Massasoit's son, the guy who teamed up with William Bradford in the last episode, his son was kind of getting annoyed about people being on his grandpa's farm or the land that he, that was his and his people's. And a lot of his people were starting to be taken as slaves. And we'll get into that here in just a second. But yeah, it was a mix of French and Native American fights here.
So, essentially, my second cousin farm analogy finally came to a head, and they realized they were going to lose Grandpa's farm to all of these assholes if they kept letting them move in, and so it was time to whip some ass. The war derived its name from Metacom, the Wampanoag chief, who was referred to by the English as King Philip. The Wampanoag people, under the leadership of Metacom's father, Massasoit, had initially maintained a relatively peaceful coexistence with the Pilgrims, marked by the early treaty in 1621 that we celebrate to this day and age in America as Thanksgiving. However, as the decades passed, tensions simmered beneath the surface of amity. English settlements expanded relentlessly. They began shitting on their secrets, super sacred shitting spot, and they would encroach upon native lands and resources constantly. They would keep repeatedly telling them to back up, but, fuck them. Roger Williams, the founder of Rhode Island, noted the growing discontent among Native Americans, writing, "The natives complain especially of the Englishmen's unjust and unrighteous devouring and taking in and fencing the natives' lands. They came in, took the land, fenced it up, and told them to get the fuck out. And it really pissed them off because, they had an agreement where, hey, you guys aren't going to do that, right? No, totally not. Don't worry about it. And then once they did, they're like, bro, get the fuck out of here. I fucking hate you. Total, I guess, like, some people would call that alpha behavior. It's a really fucking dumb mentality. Anyways, this encroachment was exacerbated by European diseases that devastated native populations, undermining the ability to resist. So, back to my farm analogy. Imagine you are getting frustrated by these people, and they give a super version of COVID to all of your friends, and all of your friends fucking die. And that was the reality the natives had to face here. Because you need your friends to kick all of your second cousin friends out, but because all of your friends fucking died from super COVID, and for some reason those fuckers aren't dying, you can't do anything. So King Philip's War erupted in 1675. After a series of escalating incidents, the spark came with the murder of John Sesamon, a Christianized Native American who believed to have warned Plymouth colony of Metacom's plans for an uprising. The swift trial and execution of 3 Wampanoags for Sesamon's murder by the English exacerbated tensions. The equivalent would be if one of your buddies fell for some QAnon bullshit that your second cousin's friends were spewing out of their mouths while they're on your grandpa's farm, technically your farm, and decided to warn, because like your friend fell for the QAnon bullshit, you decided to warn your second cousin's friends that you were planning on kicking them out. And so that pissed you and a couple of your other friends off, so you go take care of him. But then they were happy that guy, converted to the QAnon stuff, and so like, oh, you're attacking QAnons. And it's like, no, we're attacking traitors. And so as conflict broke out, it rapidly spread throughout New England. The Native Alliance, led by Metacom, mounted significant offensives, laying siege to colonial towns and pushing back the frontier. An Englishman, Mary Rawlinson, captured during a raid and later ransomed, wrote in her narrative, "The town seemed to be full of," she didn't write Native American, but Native American men. "Oh, the roaring and singing and dancing and yelling of those black creatures in the night, which made the place a lively resemblance of hell. Racist fucking bitch." And this was the other obvious issue I'm certain many of you know. Her sentiment was shared by many of the settlers, and many of the settlers did not respect the natives as fellow human beings, seeing them as beasts rather than people. And it's pretty fucked up. And so by the summer of 1676, colonial forces, often with native allies themselves, like the Mohegans, had turned the tide. Metacom's alliance began to fracture under the strain of the prolonged conflict and dwindling resources. Essentially, he couldn't keep up the war effort against all of these assholes. The war culminated with Metacom's death in August of 1676. His demise was brutal. He was killed in battle, his body dismembered, and his head displayed in Plymouth for decades. And so the equivalent in my farm analogy, which I'm going to keep going here, would be you kicking your second cousin's and his friends' asses until they essentially convince your half-brother who owns some other land to join them in kicking your ass. And then your second cousin dismembers you and steals the rest of your shit, and your family is forced to flee, and then your head is mounted on your land to remind your family to not come back to the land that rightfully belonged to them. And then your second cousin starts talking about how Christ-like and how cool they are, and how God wanted them to do that to you and your people, and you're forced to watch them from the grave as they eventually fuck over everyone else in your immediate family. Even your half-brother who teamed up with them would eventually get fucked over as well. And so that kind of makes you feel a little better in death, but that's about it. So King Philip's War had profound ramifications, obviously. The colonial victory solidified English dominance in the region, but it came at a high cost. Large swaths of the colonial frontier were depopulated and in ruins because of the war. It also underscored the colonial perception of Native Americans as a direct threat, resulting in their increased marginalization. And simultaneously, the shared trauma of the war and existential threat it posed consolidated colonial identity, fostering a greater sense of unity among disparate settlements. Essentially, it unified the people because of the war they fought, because they were all brothers in arms together. And when you fight a war with someone and, they're your ally on the battlefield, that is a lot of trust. And 100%, you're not going to see yourself as separate from some other town if all towns were under the same sort of attack. So from a broad perspective, the conflict really foreshadowed the patterns of expansion, resistance, and suppression that would characterize European Native American relations throughout the continent. And the colonists' relentless drive for land and resources, often framed in their narratives as civilizing, quote-unquote, missions, laid the groundwork for future conflicts and dispossession, shaping political and cultural landscape of what would become the United States. Bad guys won here, folks. Not gonna lie. I am of the opinion the bad guys won that one. It's really sad. Really fucked up, too, what they did. All right, moving on. So in the 1680s, the English crown, seeking to bolster its control over the American colonies, took a bold and controversial step, the formation of the domain of New England. This consolidation was a reflection of broader changes in England itself, where James II was increasingly centralizing power. The Dominion of New England aimed to unify the colonies from southern New Jersey all the way to the northern reaches of Maine under a single administrative entity. Its declared purposes were manifold: streamlining the defense against potential threats, particularly from the French and their Native American allies, also facilitating more effective oversight of colonial trade, especially in light of the Navigation Acts, and enforcing the English Crown's policies on religion, particularly the suppression of dissenters. So this is going to be a double fuck over for England here. Here's why. What they did is they banded everyone together after the war, and they gave them a name, gave them a feeling of, okay, hey, we're all in this together. We're all now equally being suppressed here. And the people that they kicked out to go to America because of their religion, they are now trying to actively resuppress their religion again. The whole reason they went to America, they're trying to undo that. Of course they're gonna fucking rebel. I don't know what England really expected there. Ugh. Sorry, I've had a bit of a sore throat, so I'm drinking some tea during this episode. So hopefully it doesn't fuck up my my throat too much and I sound, extra weird or something. So anyways, Sir Edmund Andros, the appointed governor of the Dominion, swiftly became a figure of colonial discontent. This guy was an asshole. He not only disbanded existing colonial assemblies, but also imposed a series of regulations and taxes without any local representation. He was like, fuck everyone. I know what's best for all y'all bitches. And furthermore, he aggressively enforced the Navigation Acts, challenging many established economic practices in the colonies. Yeah, because that wouldn't piss anyone off. No one would be mad by that. One New England merchant, John Pynchon, commented in his letters, "Our trade is much decayed, and all by reason of the ill constitution of our government here, which hath so great an aspect of arbitrary power, that it makes many think of removing themselves and their estates elsewhere." This sentiment was echoed widely, reflecting the degree of alienation the Dominion's policies caused. It really pissed off pretty much everybody, all the colonists in America. And moreover, religious tension became palpable. Andros, aligning with the Church of England, threatened the strong Puritan establishment of the New England colonies. He went on to endorse the Anglican worship, and there were even efforts to introduce it in traditionally Puritan strongholds. Basically, they fucked with, again, the main reason many of them had moved to America. I'm positive they had a plan to deal with the dissent here, at least initially. And then when it took a while for the dissent to turn into open rebellion, they had forgotten about it. And France was already fucking with England at the time. And also, the Dominion was pretty short-lived. So when the news of the glorious revolution in England reached the colonies in 1689, which saw James II overthrown and replaced by William and Mary, Bostonians seized the moment. They arrested Andros, and the Dominion effectively collapsed. The colonies reverted to their previous individual governance structures, but the memory of the Dominion lingered. Essentially, everyone was kind of on edge about what England was going to try to do to fuck with them next. And so now we are here in the 1700s. We have the Enlightenment and the First Great Awakening. The early 18th century brought transformative intellectual and spiritual movements to the American colonies. The confluence of Enlightenment ideas and the fervor of the First Great Awakening deeply impacted colonial society, setting the stage for the American Revolution and the subsequent amazing sex cult orgies that was going to happen in the next 100 or so years. Everyone was getting their dicks and their pussies ready for this. I'm talking Benjamin Franklin in the womb was like, I gotta get ready for this shit. I need to get ready for all the cult sex orgies. It's going to be lit. It's going to be hot. It's what we want. It's what I need now. In the womb. Impressive. The man's libido knew no bounds. No, but for real, the subsequent political divisions that were going to shape the nation because of it. So the Enlightenment was an quote-unquote intellectual movement that began in Europe and soon found fertile ground in the American colonies. It emphasized reason, scientific inquiry, and the rights of the individual. And I say quote-unquote here because America had Enlightenment Light, or the diet version of it. A lot of free thought was already persisting here in the colonies, but they weren't questioning religion as much. Because they had religious freedom, so they didn't think to question it. I mean, Benjamin Franklin would 100% question it, but he was like one guy compared to everybody else that was fucking living there at the time. Anyways, it also focused on challenging traditional sources of authority and offering a new way of understanding the world and one's place within it. So prominent figures like John Locke, whose ideas on life, liberty, and property became foundational for American political thought, profoundly influenced colonial elites. His writings on the social contract argued that governments existed based on the consent of the governed, which was a radical departure from the divine right of kings, as was previously thought. As Benjamin Franklin, a prominent American Enlightenment figure, aptly stated, "The way to see by faith is to shut the eye of reason." Which is true, especially back then. I mean, if you think about it, the whole sheep narrative and how you're supposed to be one in the Lord's flock, the quote-unquote good sheep obey and follow like a sheep does, and it becomes a habit for them, where the bad sheep are more of the, in my opinion, free thinkers and do what they want. The argument for that is that God supposedly, like a shepherd, knows what's safe for you and just wants to keep you, safe and protected. But like an overprotective parent, I feel like that pushes people to rebel. And God would be, in my mind, if he's a god, too smart for that. anyways, I like B. Money Franklin's saying on this and wanted to share my thoughts on it as well. So yeah, as the Enlightenment ideals permeated colonial society, another wave was sweeping across the spiritual landscape, which was the First Great Awakening. And this is why I say they had the Enlightenment light, was because of this shit. So beginning in the 1730s, this religious revival spread like wildfire, emphasizing individual religious experiences and a personal connection to God and to God's chosen speaker's penis. Itinerant preachers like George Whitefield and Jonathan Edwards drew vast crowds, captivating them with sermons about sin, redemption, and the imminent judgment of God, and how they would only get away scot-free if they fucked them. Like everybody in the crowd that was there had to fuck them. And their semen was going to cleanse them. And that was the true baptism. It was baptism by cum. And Edwards' renowned sermon, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry Penis, captured the essence of this. Sorry, anytime I hear about the Great Enlightenment, it just immediately makes me think about cults. I really feel like this is what caused a bunch of cults. But his renowned sermon, Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God, that was the actual title, captured the essence of this movement, painting vivid images of divine wrath and the urgency of personal salvation. You had to do it now. If you didn't do it now, and you didn't pay me the tithing, well, then you're fucked, right? Because, you're pissing off God's chosen. How dare you? And while the Enlightenment championed reason and logic, the Great Awakening emphasized emotion and spiritual rebirth. Yet, both movements, in their own ways, challenged established authorities. So it was still kind of like a challenge against tradition by having these there. The Enlightenment questioned traditional societal hierarchies and promoted democratic ideals, while the Great Awakening often ran counter to established religious institutions, leading to a proliferation of new denominations and sects. Kind of like how Anne Hutchinson broke away from the Puritans and wanted to give her own take on salvation, and how people were kind of pissed that they said that they could, their teaching was like a based off of like a work of acts, not the work of just grace that Jesus gives. So essentially shit like that, and how she kind of went off and did her own thing for a while before she was brutally beheaded, Anyways, the two movements also had political implications. The Enlightenment's emphasis on individual rights and representative government provided ideological ammunition for challenges to British colonial policies. Meanwhile, the First Great Awakening's focus on personal religious conviction and its occasional challenges to religious hierarchies nurtured a spirit of questioning and resistance to established authority. So America got this like double burst of fuck you to England. It was two middle fingers up, not just the one. They had two that was pushing them there. And it fanned the flames of rebellion in people's hearts. So much so, they actually literally began singing again. I'm not even kidding you. Little known fact, the Roman Catholics and Puritans hated fun so much for so much of early colonial America. They didn't like songs. And only the native inhabitants had fun, really. But because of this shit, white people started making music again. And one of the songs that came from the Appalachian Mountains that were being inhabited at the time by folk people, I've decided to recreate for you guys. Let me go ahead and pull it up here. In the rugged highlands, under heaven's dome, we carved out our lives, made the mountains home. But across the sea comes a mighty roar. A crown lion seeks to rule our shore. With a vehement cry through the forest we vow to preserve our liberty, to no crown will bow. A stalwart rebels, in shadows we stand, defying edicts from a distant land. Man, those Appalachian folk singers are fucking cool. Making that song, obviously like just super real song that totally happened in the Appalachian Mountains in the 1700s. Definitely is not like a ripoff of like any famous song that I know about. So anyways, together with that, the Enlightenment and the First Great Awakening laid crucial intellectual and spiritual groundwork for the revolutionary era that lay ahead. They fostered a colonial identity that was increasingly confident, diverse, and willing to challenge traditional sources of authority. These twin movements, in essence, became foundational pillars in the ideological battles that would eventually lead to the formation of parties like the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans, reflecting the diverse visions of the American experiment. And so now we get into a few more expansions and conflicts with the colonies as well. So the 18th century, in addition to that, bore witness to a significant colonial expansion as settlers ventured westward, driven by dreams of prosperity and land. However, this relentless push into the frontier brought the colonists in direct and often violent conflict with Native American groups, whose ancestral lands were under siege. One of the most significant of these conflicts was the Yamasee War, which erupted between 1715 and 1717. The Yamasee, an indigenous tribe residing mainly in present-day South Carolina, had initially maintained amiable trade relations with the English colonists. However, a toxic combination of factors soured this relationship. The European demand for Native American slaves, and get this, the natives didn't want to be slaves. How outrageous. It's crazy. So you couple that with aggressive land encroachments and an imbalanced trade system that drove the Yamasee tribe into debt. It really strained the relations to the breaking point. And clearly it was the Yamasee's fault for wanting fair trade and for their people to not be taken as slaves. Way too much to ask, honestly. I mean, how dare anyone ask for basic human decency and to be treated fairly? Fuck them. That's fucking terrible. No one should ever ask for that. So in 1715, the Yamasee, alongside a confederation of other tribes, including the Creek, Cherokee, and Catawba, launched a coordinated uprising against colonial settlements. One South Carolina settler, writing in the midst of the conflict, described the terror that gripped the region. They said, "There is such consternation and terror throughout the whole province that I believe half the inhabitants would forsake it, were there anywhere to go." Basically, everyone there was like, "No, fucking, we're stuck here. We fight and we die now." The war was brutal and devastating for South Carolina, with some estimates suggesting up to 7% of its colonial population perished. The conflict eventually subsided, primarily due to the internal divisions among the Native American alliance and the timely intervention of the neighboring North Carolina and Virginia colonies. The aftermath of the war saw a shift in colonial policy, with South Carolina drastically reducing its Native American slave trade and initiating a series of reforms in its trade policies. So the Yamasee kind of fucked them up to the point where they're like, okay, we'll like fix some things. However, the Yamasee War was just one of numerous conflicts that dotted the 18th century colonial landscape. The push for territory and dominance in the New World was a recurrent theme. Whether it was the French and Indian War, which saw various tribes aligning with either the British or the French, or smaller localized skirmishes with the narrative was consistent. It was all the same. It was a clash of cultures, competing interests, and the tragic consequences of colonial expansion for the Native Americans and indigenous peoples. These conflicts did more than just reshape territorial boundaries. They altered colonial perceptions. The often precarious and tense relationship with Native American tribes instilled a frontier spirit among colonists, fostering a unique blend of independence, resilience, and adaptability. Yet it also laid bare the often ruthless pursuit of manifest destiny, highlighting the stark contrast in visions for the New World. Because again, God told them it's okay. They're allowed to go do it because their God said that they're the correct people to be doing that. In the broader mosaic of American history, these conflicts fueled by territorial ambitions really underscored the foundational challenges of nation building. They brought into sharp focus the tensions between expansionist ambitions and the rights of indigenous populations. And whether or not they really should have rights is what a lot of people ask themselves, which really fucked up. Because back in the day, way back in the day, Christians had no rights. And they were super pissy about that. And then for these guys, a lot of their ancestors in New England weren't treated fairly. I don't know. It makes you wonder how much generational trauma has to occur before one generation is finally like, you know what? I'm going to break the cycle and just not inflict this on anybody else. But then you also have to ask yourself, is it generational trauma or like, that's inflicted upon people of certain populations or, I guess endangered populations, which Christians were for a long time in human history until they took over Rome? Or is it just some ambitious assholes who use, tactics to manipulate people into fighting these wars for them so they can have gain? And it's just really done by a few evil people. I don't know. I feel like it's a mix of both. Overall, I don't know. It's crazy. I'll continue. So now we're finally into Samuel and John Adams. So here we are, guys. So on September 27th, 1722, in the thriving port city of Boston, Samuel motherfucking Adams was born. His birthplace was a hive of activity, with ships arriving and departing, bringing goods from across the Atlantic, and fostering a vibrant trade economy. Boston, at the time, was a crucible of colonial American society, bustling with merchants, traders, and craftsmen, and sailors. Samuel was born into the prominent Adams family. His father, Samuel Adams Sr., was a successful merchant and an influential figure in local politics, serving as a deacon of the Congregational Church as well as a justice of the peace. A contemporary of the Adams family, Dr. Benjamin Church, once wrote, "The Adams home was always full of discourse on trade, on rights, and on the future of this colony." They were constantly talking about that shit. Is definitely prevalent for young Sam, and the reason why he becomes kind of like a, like that one friend who just likes to keep pushing buttons. That was definitely Sam. Sam liked to push buttons. He loved it. It was his favorite thing to do, and stir up the pot. But he mostly did it as a chaotic good. He's definitely more of like a chaotic good character, whereas his cousin John is more lawful good. So, young Samuel's early environment was one of intellectual rigor and political discussion. His family was deeply involved in the local community, and they were known for their staunch Puritan beliefs. The Puritan ethos of the community, emphasizing the education and civic duty, undoubtedly played a significant role in shaping Adams' formative years. In entering the diary of John Adams, Samuel's second cousin, hints at the religious fervor and intellectual atmosphere of the Adams household. John said, "The stories of our grandfather, the minister, Sam's grandfather is also named Samuel Adams, by the way, were often told with lessons of piety and reverence," which I'm sure many people can relate to. It's like when your aunt talks about how when they went to the grocery store, they got delayed in the store because it was busy. And then when they got into the car and were headed home, they saw a car wreck, and then they are convinced it was some sort of divine intervention that caused them to leave later to avoid the car wreck themselves. Like they were the ones that didn't get in the car wreck because it was God protecting them. And when you're listening to it, you're thinking, but that's just, you're pulling like random shit out of your ass to as a causation here. So you try to explain to your aunt that she's just experiencing confirmation bias, and that in all reality, two events correlating is just a spurious correlation and have no relation to each other. And getting slowed down in the grocery store and car wrecks happen every fucking day. Then you point out, if God were real and wanted to protect you, couldn't he just, make it so you had to take another road that day to get home, or just make it so you nearly avoid the car if it were going to hit you? And if that is the case, wouldn't every case of that happening to you be more examples of his power in your life? And then you too, off saying, oh, sorry. And then because of you saying that, you're like, so if it is, then wouldn't the Muslim and pagan gods' effects on people that also go through a very similar experience where, they're delayed a little bit and they avoid a car crash, or they don't get into a car wreck because they were delayed X amount of minutes, wouldn't their experience be just as important and therefore just as likely that their gods are real as well? Then she hits you with God loves all of his children regardless if they believe in him or not. So you realize you have no chance of ever helping them rationalize this idea because they have so often utilized these events as confirmation bias for their entire lives. They are now unmovable in the idea that it's God's influence in those moments. And so you just don't bring it up ever again and just enjoy spending time with them because honestly, their beliefs don't affect you. And they are assholes about it, so why push it? Then you both live a happy life and get along just fine because both of you realize neither of you needs to be right or justified in your beliefs to the other. I have a good family. Anyways, Sam Adams' early education was at Boston Latin School, where he demonstrated a keen intellect and voracious appetite for knowledge. It wasn't long before he advanced to Harvard College at the age of 14. At Harvard, Samuel's theological and political beliefs began to solidify. His master's thesis curiously argued that it was lawful to resist the supreme magistrate if the commonwealth cannot otherwise be preserved, which was a radical notion for the time, and an early indicator of his revolutionary inclinations. He argued that it should be, legally, legally he was incorrect, right? Lawfully, not right, but morally, I actually argue that he's 100% correct right there. But lawfully, maybe you could push it for there, but for the laws at the time, no. Yes, you stick with the Commonwealth or you get fucked over. And so Samuel Adams' birth and upbringing in Boston during the early 18th century situated him at a crossroads of Enlightenment thinking and deep-rooted Puritan values. These dual influences, coupled with the backdrop of a rapidly changing colonial society, would propel Adams into the epicenter of the revolutionary movement in the decades to come. As he grew and evolved, Samuel Adams would come to embody the spirit of American resistance and the push for independence, leaving an indelible mark on the nation's history. And so in 1735, we also get a few years, 12 years later, 13 years later? Yeah, 13 years later. In the town of Braintree, Massachusetts, not far from the bustling hub of Boston, John Adams was brought into the world. His birth came at a transformative period as well. And the Adams homestead in Braintree was a testament to the family's Puritan heritage. They're all very Puritan. With its sturdy construction and sparse decorations, the family were descendants of some of the earliest English settlers in Massachusetts, and their Puritan roots ran deep. John's father, also named John Adams, was a farmer and shoemaker, a man of modest means, but respected within the community. He served in various local offices, including selectman, constable, and lieutenant in the militia. An old neighbor, Josiah Quincy, remarked, "John Sr. was a man of few words, but when he spoke, people listened. His integrity was beyond reproach." These type of quotes always make me want to go back in time and just observe some of these quiet, rugged type people. Because when other people say this or like to quote it, I ask myself, were they quiet because they didn't like to talk and preferred silence and, it really emphasized the importance when they did speak? Or, especially in John Sr.'s case, was he secretly an immortal space vampire whose real name was William Bradford? And he was quiet because when he spoke, it took every ounce of strength he had to not praise the Dark Lord Scrooby Dooby and his almighty power. Space Vampire Bradford will be a t-shirt one day. I swear to God. I promise you guys that, my listeners. From an early age, young John displayed an insatiable curiosity. His father recognized this and ensured John received a good education. The family's minister, Reverend John Hancock, grandfather to the famous John Hancock of the Declaration of Independence, wrote in a letter, "The young Adams boy is ever with a book in hand. He has a brightness about him, a spark that suggests great things to come." Fucking nerd! Honestly, though, John, as opposed to Sam, was much more of a bookworm and loved outsmarting as opposed to fighting his opponents like Sam would. Sam was kind of a bookworm too. He was definitely smart, but I'd say John was more into the reading and, staying in his library and Sam would be much more active and pushing shit forward. Whereas John tried to do things slowly, and kind of over time, lawfully as he can. So John was sent to study under Mr. Joseph Marsh, who was a graduate of Harvard at a nearby dame school. Adams developed a fondness for reading and discourse. He later recounted in his diary a particularly transformative moment. He said, "I once stumbled upon a volume of The Spectator, which is a publication from England. It was the first collection of essays and stories of its kind I had ever seen. From that day, I cherished the dream of attending Harvard." Again, fucking nerd, man. But, I really feel like the only reason John thought this was so fucking cool was because, unlike us, John never got the chance to experience the awesomeness of slaying dragons, wizards, and also fantasy elf-raism in a land called Skyrim. And he never got the chance to buy it 17 times. I wish I was fucking with you. I'm really not. Skyrim has actually been released and redone 17 fucking times, guys. Within the 12, it's only been out for 12 years. It's been re-released 17 times. That is nearly 1.5 releases per year. It means half of the next release is already being done, and we've had at least 2 or 3 releases within the same year. That's crazy to think about. Holy shit. Todd Howard just couldn't move on. Or I guess Bethesda wanted just to milk the cow till it was dead and then resurrect it using some fucked up dumber Telvanni necromancy magic and then milk it to death again over and over and over again. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is if John Adams got to experience Skyrim, he might not have given as much of a shit about all the cool books at Harvard. Really no point there. Definitely just a pure cutaway, but fucking... I had found out that Skyrim had been re-released 17 times and it had only been out for 12 years. And it really bugged me as I was writing the script. So that needed to be said. So, however, Todd Howard and Michael Evangelion Shroombrain Kirkbride weren't alive yet, so John Adams would go on to study at Harvard College, where he was exposed to a world of ideas, from the Enlightenment thinkers of Europe to the debates raging in colonial society about governance and rights. Here he nurtured his love for law, a passion that would shape his future career and the trajectory of a fledgling nation. John's birth and upbringing in Braintree instilled in him a profound sense of duty, a commitment to the principles, and an analytical mind that would serve him well in the tumultuous decades ahead. As he matured, John Adams would emerge as a leading voice in the quest for the American independence, and as a vital architect in the foundational structures of the new republic. And so then we move into 1740. It was a notable year for Samuel Adams as he marked the completion of his formal education with the graduation from Harvard College. Nestled within the environs of Cambridge, Massachusetts, Harvard was already gaining a reputation as a premier institution of higher learning in the colonies. It was the shit back then. Everybody wanted to be in Harvard just as much, as they do today. And even back then, they were all like, yeah, dude, we got to go to Harvard. If you want to be respected, you go to Harvard. And so by the time Samuel Adams attended, it was steeped in both religious traditions, thanks to its Puritan founders, and the burgeoning ideas of the Enlightenment. While at Harvard, Samuel dove into an array of subjects, from theology and the classics to the emergent thoughts of European philosophers. He became well versed in the discourses that would later influence his political activism, as well as a thought process about how beings, when you squish them, are essentially just cum, and how your cum is really just beans, from Aristotle. And he was really interested in, he'd do a lot of thought experiments by getting a bunch of beans and inserting it into women that would, wanted to have babies. And he was like, well, if the beans are cum, then I could probably squish up the beans and use the bean juice to get them pregnant. And it never worked. So he debunked that theory pretty quick. A former class, could you fucking imagine if that's like how they did it? Is they finally like, okay, listen, Aristotle says there's a thing about beans and cum. Let's just give it a try. They just shoved up a bunch of girls. That'd be awful. Anyways, a former classmate, Nathaniel Appleton, would later recall, Sam was ever eager in debates, pressing each point with fervor and conviction. Yet, if it wasn't just the art of argument he mastered, he deeply contemplated the substance of our discussions. He also showed a fondness for dunking Little Jim in the chamber pots after these debates, if Little Jim was able to point out too many flaws in Sam's logic. Over time, Little Jim would grow sick and too delirious to debate Sam anymore, and would eventually die, to a fever he developed after Sam had dunked him in a pot he had recently shit into. For his master's thesis, Samuel chose a topic that was both audacious and prescient. He proposed the idea that it was lawful for the public to resist a chief executive who violated their rights. This was a radical assertion for its time and hinted at the revolutionary sentiments that would later define his career. He's basically like, fuck the king with this shit. If he screws us over, we should be allowed to fuck him over. The thesis, in many ways, became a precursor to the arguments the colonists would make against British rule in the decades that followed. And upon his graduation, a local newspaper, the Boston Gazette, included a brief note. Among this year's graduates, Mr. Samuel Adams of Boston stood out for his eloquent thesis and spirited debates, signaling a bright future. This recognition was an early acknowledgement of the role he would come to play in the political landscape of the colonies. Harvard provided Samuel with more than just academic knowledge. It gave him a network of like-minded individuals, many of whom would later become leaders and influencers in the American Revolution. It was here they began forging connections and honing his leadership skills, which would be crucial in his subsequent endeavors. The year 1740 was not just a personal milestone for him. It symbolized a broader intellectual awakening that was happening across the colonies. The ideas and principles he was exposed to at Harvard would significantly influence his advocacy for colonial rights and push the rebellion further and further. And so in 1748, this political landscape of the American colonies began to really experience the ripples of a new voice, one that would resonate deeply in the years leading up to the Revolution. Sam, leveraging the power of the pen, started publishing a series of essays under the pseudonym Populus. And, this is definitely kind of like a emo phase in a lot of ways. He, at least that's what his father would argue, right? This is his little rebellion phase. He'll get out of him. But it definitely wasn't really a full phase that he was going through. Like his dad kept saying it was, yeah. He was trying to start a monumental revolution that would shape a future country for centuries to come. Like, God, Dad, I'm going to change the shape of a country, Dad. Like, what the heck? This isn't like a phase, Dad. What the hell? That was Sam. However, the use of pseudonyms in political writings was a common practice during this period. Primarily to protect the author from potential repercussions, like assassins, that the Vatican or the Crown would send, but also to emphasize the message over the messenger. So, the message was more important. And so he chose populus, which translates from Latin to the people. This was a very deliberate choice by Adams, underscoring his belief in the collective voice and rights of the colonists. His writings initially appeared in the Boston Gazette, a Whig publication known for its anti-British sentiments. In one of his early essays, Populus writes, "It is the unalienable right of every man to guard against any encroachment on his liberties and to question the actions of his leaders." This sentiment was a direct reflection of the growing frustration among the colonists with the increasing British interference in the colonial affairs. They were sticking their hands too far up their asses, and everyone was getting tired of it. You're like, listen, you don't need to check my prostate that much, doctor. Once every couple of years, okay? You don't need to come to my house for a doctor's visit. It's kind of weird, dude. Samuel's essays were not just reactionary, they were visionary. Through Populus, he outlined the fundamental principles that he believed should govern the colonies. Principles rooted in individual rights, collective governance, and resistance to tyranny. A fellow patriot, Silas Downer, remarked, "When Populus speaks, it's as if the very soul of Boston has taken form on paper. This man knew what the fuck he was doing. He knew how to rile up a crowd. He was a button pusher and loved it." These essays also laid the groundwork for some of the foundational philosophies of the American Revolution. Sam Adams, through Populus, introduced the ideas about self-governance, representation, and the dangers of unchecked power. Someone being able to constantly rerun for the same position in government for their entire life. And, that position does hold a lot of power and influence in what laws get passed. But for some reason, they can stay there like kings for their whole lives. Shit like that. He was definitely super against that and, didn't want that to happen. So Samuel Adams' writings as Populus were not just confined to Boston. They were widely circulated and read throughout the colonies, influencing public opinion and inspiring a generation of revolutionary thinkers. He riled everyone up. It was in this capacity as a writer and thinker that Samuel Adams first began to leave an indelible mark in American history. The ideals he championed would later find their way into the foundational documents of the United States, underscoring his role as a forefather of American political thought. Okay, and then in 1751, just a few years after he's doing all that shit, or really a year later, John, his Sam's second cousin, begins his enrollment at Harvard College. And so again, his tensions were simmering because of Sam, being a pot stirrer. Another Adams was about to embark on an intellectual journey that would shape his future and that of the nascent nation. That year, John Adams, at the age of 16, enrolled at Harvard College. Harvard, by the mid-18th century, was an esteemed institution of higher learning that attracted scholars and thinkers from across the colonies. So, kind of get into a little more, like, this wasn't even just like a Boston thing. Everyone in the U.S. and even like outside the U.S. kind of wanted to go to Harvard to learn more. John's years at Harvard were transformative. A letter from one of his professors, Mr. Jonathan Mayhew, provides a glimpse into his academic prowess. He says, young Mr. Adams displays an aptitude not just for the classics, but for the matters of jurisprudence and governance. His inquiries, though sometimes challenging to traditional thought, show a depth of understanding rare for his age. The dude was smart, and even though his teachers like disagreed with him, they were like, "No, this guy like knows what the fuck he's talking about, though. And like for how young he is, he definitely gets it." So indeed, John's penchant for questioning and debate became a hallmark of his time at Harvard. His exposure to the works of Enlightenment thinkers such as John Locke, Montesquieu, and Rousseau ignited in him a passion for the principles of liberty, representation, and governance. In a letter to a friend, he mused, "At Harvard, the mind is not just filled, but sparked. Each day I find myself pondering the nature of man, governance, and of liberty." Good fucking school back then, and probably still is. You probably still get your mind sparked over there. So at least I hope. I hope it's not just some bullshit rich boys club. I don't know. Never been to Harvard. I didn't get in. I also didn't try to get in. But like even if I tried, I probably wouldn't have gotten in. I'm not that cool. Anyways, while the curriculum was steeped in classical education, the college was also a hub of political discourse. Everybody liked to talk politics back then. I mean, we still do. The events in the wider world, from the growing discontent with British policies to debates about colonial governance, were fervently discussed in classrooms and the dormitories of Harvard. Basically, there were a bunch of college kids getting there being like, listen, man, we were born here, and these fuckers have no idea how life works here. Why should they be able to tell us what to do? That makes no sense. And everyone was like, yeah, you're kind of fucking right. And so John was really not like a passive participant in these discussions. He was often at the forefront, articulating his views with clarity and conviction. His time at Harvard laid the intellectual foundation that he would need for his future endeavors. And so by the 1750s, John would steep himself further into law, into this discourse by becoming a lawyer. He was very much a respected lawyer and public figure in Boston, in Massachusetts. Oh, gosh. John's foray into law was not a mere accident. After his graduation from Harvard in 1755, he spent a few years teaching in Worcester, grappling with his true calling. But the pull of law, with its intellectual rigor and potential for societal impact, proved irresistible. He's like, I gotta go fucking do this, man. He's like, I can't be teaching you all fuckers anymore. I gotta change society and shit. Peace. And so that's what he went and did. Under the tutelage of James Putnam, a prominent Worcester lawyer, John embarked on his legal studies, soaking in the intricacies of colonial jurisprudence. And by 1758, John had established his law practice in Suffolk County. A fellow lawyer, Robert Treat Payne, observed, John Adams possesses a keen intellect and unyielding commitment to justice. His arguments, both written and oral, reflect a depth of understanding and a flair for persuasion. He was a persuasive motherfucker, much like Sam. Yeah, it seems the Adams were just very good at like tugging people's hearts and like pulling them towards their beliefs. So one of the cases that propelled John into the spotlight was his defense of a group of Wrentham residents who opposed the creation of a new parish on the grounds of taxation without representation. In his arguments, John invoked the principles of individual rights and self-governance, foreshadowing the broader debates that would engulf the colonies in the coming decade. Really, like this is like a big foreshadow. like if someone was like filming this and this was a TV series, this would be the foreshadow to the T-tax that would happen for the taxation without representation here. And it had been going on for a while. I mean, even back in the 1600s, England tried to pull that shit. It failed. They should have learned their lesson, but no one ever does. So there was a report in the Massachusetts Gazette on this case where they said Mr. Adams' defense was grounded not just in legal statutes, but the very principles of justice and liberty. The man was definitely like with the concepts of like what it is. He was arguing that it was unfair. And so while John's legal acumen was undeniable, it was his integrity and principled stance that set him apart. Even when taking on unpopular cases such as the defense of British soldiers and following the Boston Massacre in 1770, John's commitment to the rule of law was unwavering. And this is why I say John is lawful good and Sam is chaotic good. Sam will do the ends kind of justify the means, right? And he's not going to do anything to purposely fuck over other good people, or at least his people. Whereas John is more like, okay, I'm going to follow the law, and then I'm going to try and change the law through the law. And this is how the two paths kind of begin to diverge here as to how they should go about change. Where Sam's more of like, take action, do it now. John's more of like, slow, keep it steady. Again, kind of reminiscent of the Democratic and Republican parties now and how they like to do things. Democrats more of like, okay, go in, take change now. Republicans are like, okay, no, slow and steady. Maybe change a few things, but keep it where it's at. So, and the reason why they want to, honestly, the more I look into it, the reason why they want to keep the status quo is because it's good for them. It keeps them rich. Duh. That's an argument for another episode. I'll get into that later. So anyways, John's legal practice was not just about individual cases. It became a platform for articulating broader political and philosophical ideas. His essays and public writings delved into the issues of governance, rights, and colonial identity. And in a letter to a friend, he wrote, "The law, in its essence, is about principles. It's not just about statutes and verdicts, but about the very fabric of a just society." He fucking got it, right? He nailed it right in the head. It's about a principle. It's not about just like hitting a number, essentially, like hitting a goal, hitting a target. It's about doing what's fair and what's right. And a lot of people seem to forget that nowadays, sadly, because everyone is definitely a lot more, out for themselves. Like, oh, fuck society. I just need to take care of myself. And a lot of that's due to some of the shit that happens after the Revolutionary War, which I'll get into next episode way more. Okay, so in 1765, this would prove to be a pivotal year in the American colonies' relationship with Britain. At the heart of this transformative year was the Stamp Act. It was an audacious attempt by the British Parliament to levy a direct tax on the colonies. This act, however, was not merely a financial maneuver. It was emblematic of the broader struggle for autonomy and representation. The Stamp Act required everyone who was a part of a, sex cult to go back to England and get their asses stamped by the king. It was unfair. It put a lot of merchants out of business due to the expense and cost of having to move them and their family out to England for a few months while they waited to get their asses stamped. And what the stamp would do, it would essentially state, hey, you're loyal. And when they were there, they had to give, it was essentially like alms to the church, but to the king. And they would have to give about like 40% of their total income that they had made over their time spent in the colony. It was a ridiculous idea. And also part of the stamping and the branding, usually the king did have to take either his dick or he would get a scepter in the cases where he just couldn't get it up and ram your ass just a little bit. About maybe a little more than the tip in. Just so that way, he knew you were loyal. And, people who were clearly upset about this, it was clearly an abuse of power and nobody liked it. Nobody liked getting even just the tip in. It was only the tip. You didn't really do anything. Maybe widen it just a tiny bit for a day. And who knows if you used lube or not. Maybe if you went into lube, I can see how, why it's easier for them to get pissed at it. But, if he spat on it a little bit and he kept himself, hydrated and drank enough water, he probably could have gotten through a couple hundred people and been fine. So, no, obviously that wasn't it. No, the Stamp Act required printed materials in the colonies, from legal documents to newspapers, to be produced on stamped paper from London. It forced them to buy from one supplier, essentially. And that supplier could up the cost, and the cost could go way up for them and fuck over a bunch of papers. So it symbolized a tangible and invasive assertion of British authority, the very notion of paying for a stamp from a distant power, with no colonial representation in its decision making it was backwards to the principles of self-governance that many colonists had been holding very dear. And so Sam, who was already a vocal critic of British policies, quickly galvanized opposition to the act. Recognizing the power of collective action, he played a crucial role in forming the Sons of Liberty. The cool motorcycle gang that likes to fuck shit up. Or something like that. No, it was a secretive group of patriots committed to resisting British encroachments. As reported by the Boston Gazette, Samuel's fiery oratory at the group's gatherings was a source of inspiration. Mr. Adams speaks not just with the eloquence of words, but the force of conviction. He, it would be like the equivalent of, speeches given by political leaders nowadays, where it's like short to the point, eloquent enough, and hit you home. It gets you fired up, gets you ready to go fight. Like, you could go to war for this guy. Sam was good at that shit. Good at getting people to stand against tyranny in a lot of ways. So, beyond clandestine meetings, the Sons of Liberty made their displeasure known through public demonstrations. They organized widespread protests, and effigies of tax collectors were often paraded and burned, which is a little fucked up. Definitely more of like a threat. They're like, okay, here's a image of you, buddy. Let's burn it. That's what we want to do to you. Fuck you. So Sam, in a letter to a confidant, wrote, it is the right of every man to question the actions of his overlords. The Stamp Act is not just a tax, it is a shackle. Strong words. Real strong fucking words, and gets a great point across. And so while Sam was stirring the public, John provided a more measured yet equally forceful critique of the act. His Braintree instructions set a set of resolutions adopted by the town of Braintree skillfully dissected the legal and moral implications of the Stamp Act. He argued that taxation without representation violated the fundamental rights of Englishmen. In his text, John posited, if Parliament can tax us, it can also legislate for us in all cases whatsoever, which would nullify our charters and the essential British distinction between internal and external legislation. Again, he went about the nerd route and was like, so like legally you guys shouldn't be able to do this. This is kind of fucked up. It goes against your own rules. So yeah, John, it's just the way John liked to do things. The combined efforts of the Adams cousins, along with the widespread colonial opposition, culminated in the repeal of the Stamp Act in 1766. However, the events of 1765 were more than just a temporary standoff. It set the stage for a protracted struggle for independence. Through their distinct approaches, both Samuel's direct action and John's intellectual rigor, the Adams cousins showcased a multifaceted resistance that would define the American Revolution. And then, 5 years later, we have one of the most provocative incidents in the lead up to the American Revolution, which was the Boston Massacre. So in 1770, on March 5th, the cold streets of Boston became a theater of bloodshed as British soldiers, facing a hostile crowd of colonists, fired their muskets, leaving 5 civilians dead. And you need to understand, because of Sam already stirring up the pot here and people getting pissed at England, this would be like if, let's say, the QAnon crowd, right? So like at Trump's rally, let's say the police had come in and decided to, before they, raided the White House, before like they actually took any action, fired upon the crowd, right? Could you imagine what our country would look like today and how likely we would be in a civil war? That's essentially what happened here. But in all reality, the civilians were already, starting to push their luck on a bunch of things. So it's honestly more like the QAnon crowd going into the White House and starting to attack it, and then them firing on it. That is essentially what happened here, which a lot of us, I feel like today, realize that actually might have been justified for them to fire. And they did. I think they shot and killed a couple people because of threats of weapons, but back then, not everyone, like no one else had a weapon besides the soldiers. So they probably, they were being harassed and attacked, so they had to defend themselves too. Just morally, it gets complicated here and gets pretty gray, which is why John, does defend them later. Because again, John's more of a lawful good. Anytime I think of like a paladin in D&D, who's lawful good, I think about John Adams, to be honest. And like Sam Adams is more of like the chaotic road. He likes to be sneaky and like do some like Robin Hood shit, basically. Gosh, sorry. So, tensions had been mounting already between the British troops and the local populace, and many saw the military presence as an occupation, emblematic of Britain's tightening grip in the colonies. And that fateful night straight up started the war, right? So Sam Adams, ever the master of public sentiment, quickly recognized the potency of this event, and he skillfully, or kind of exploitatively, turned the Boston Massacre into a symbol of British tyranny and colonial victimhood. Sam, with his flair for dramatics, organized a massive public funeral for the victims, a procession that drew thousands, as described by the Boston Post boy. It said, "The streets were lined with mourners, and their faces etched with grief and rage. Mr. Adams, leading the procession, was a figure of stoic resolve." You know, he had to be the tough guy that everyone could follow. Which for back then, I guess it's kind of true. Anyways, so beyond the public ceremonies, Sam used the power of the press to further the colonial cause with collaborators like Paul Revere. He disseminated engravings that depicted the massacre as a premeditated slaughter, basically kind of changing the narrative here, making it seem like the British were like, oh, you know what, here, we gotta kill a few people, and that should like get them to be lambs. That's essentially what he told everyone else that they were doing. They had planned killing civilians to push the public back into obedience, to suppress them. But the reality is it was more of a tragic consequence of rising tensions. So Sam, in a letter to a fellow patriot, noted, "The blood spilt on King Street speaks more loudly than the words or petitions. It is our duty to ensure that it does not cry in vain." Sam was ready for fucking war. He was gunning for it, right? He's like, yeah, it's time to fight. We got to fight back. And so in contrast, John faced a moral and professional quandary. While deeply sympathetic to the colonial cause, he was also a staunch believer in the rule of law. When the British soldiers involved in the shooting were put on trial, John agreed to defend them, which was a very unpopular decision that risked tarnishing his reputation. But throughout the trial, John argued that the soldiers had acted in self-defense, facing a mob that threatened their lives. His defense was rooted not in support of the British, but in upholding the principles of justice. During his arguments, John famously stated, "Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passions, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence." The trial concluded with 2 soldiers being found guilty of manslaughter and the others acquitted, a verdict that underscored the fairness of the colonial justice system. John's role in the trial, as he later reflected in his diaries, was a testament to the principle that even the enemy must have a fair trial. Again, complete lawful good guy here. And so in 1773, because Sam did not really agree with John's actions here, Sam decided to be a little bit more brazen in his acts of defiance, and it would become emblematic of the American spirit of rebellion, and we have the Boston Tea Party. As the chilly December wind swept through Boston, a group of colonists boarded 3 British ships and dumped 342 chests of tea into the harbor. It was a protest against the Tea Act, which granted the British East India Company a virtual monopoly on tea trade and reaffirmed the British Parliament's right to tax the colonies. I mean, to this day, Brits still kind of have a, fucking grip hold on tea. Well, India has some really good tea too, like actual India. I like chai. Chai is super good. But, when you think about tea, I usually think about British people. That might be because I'm here in America, and that's just like a biased view. But I'm certain many other countries, when they think about Britain, think about tea. And it was a good way to defy him. Sam was very smart about doing that. So, as one of the leading voices of colonial discontent, Sam is often associated with this daring act. While it's not definitively proven that Sam was directly involved in the planning or execution, there's little doubt about his endorsement of it. Matter of fact, 100%, I'm pretty sure he planned the whole thing and was the one that wanted to dress up as Native Americans. So, a little racist, but so was everyone else back then. Not that it justifies it. It's still wrong. Just realize that he felt like he could be that bold because everyone else was okay with it. So in various gatherings at the Old South Meeting House prior to the event, Sam's speeches galvanized the populace. As reported by a local pamphlet, Sam declared, If we tamely suffer a lawless attack upon our liberties, we encourage it and involve others in our doom. Kind of also a slight at John there for being a little too nice in his opinion to the Brits. And so the fallout from the Tea Party was swift and severe, with the British imposing the coercive acts, or which are often referred to as the intolerable acts in the colonies, as punishment. Which Samuel's writings from this period show his outrage. In a letter to a fellow patriot, he wrote, "The audacity of the crown to punish an entire city for the actions of a few only reinforces our conviction that we must stand united against such tyranny." And on the other hand, John Adams was not in Boston at the time of the Tea Party, so John definitely wasn't there. Still, news of the event quickly reached him. In his diary, John expressed his admiration for the boldness of the act, but also pondered its ramifications. He wrote, "This destruction of the tea is so bold, so daring, so firm, so intrepid and inflexible, and it must have so important consequences, and so lasting, that I can't but consider it an epoch in history." Interestingly, while correspondence between John and Sam during this exact period hasn't been explicitly documented regarding the Tea Party, their public statements and writings give us a glimpse into their perspectives. Both seem to recognize the gravity of the situation and the point of no return the colonies were approaching with Britain. They realized war was inevitable. And so, because of these intolerable acts, the First Continental Congress began in 1774. The First Continental Congress convened in Philadelphia in September 1774, bringing together delegates from 12 of the 13 colonies, with Georgia being the exception, because fuck Georgia. This assembly was a direct response to the intolerable acts, and represented a collective colonial effort to address the grievances with Britain. They were basically deciding, should we go to war or not? So both Sam and John were chosen as delegates from Massachusetts, ensuring that the Bay's colonies' passionate resistance was well represented. However, even within this shared purpose, their individual perspectives were distinct, very distinct. Sam, by this time, had fully embraced the role of a radical. He viewed the relationship with Britain through the lens of repeated affronts to colonial rights and autonomy. He's like, these fuckers have been doing this for years. And so at Congress, Sam was a vocal advocate for a stronger stance against the British impositions. In one heated debate, a fellow delegate, Richard Henry Lee, noted that in a letter that Mr. Samuel Adams speaks with a fervor that inspires. He says that only through a firm, unified resistance can we hope to redress our grievances. Essentially stating that without fighting back, we're going to get pushed around. Which to a degree was true. I honestly think without fighting back, they would have just been slaves to the British crown eventually. But while Sam was pushing for a more confrontational approach, John brought a more measured perspective for the discussions. Having defended the British soldiers after the Boston Massacre, and always having a keen legal mind, John understood the nuances and complexities of the colonial relationship with Britain. He believed in dialogue and negotiation, albeit from a position of strength. We must show the crown our unity and resolve, John argued, but we should also extend the olive branch, not just the bayonet. So despite their differing approaches, correspondence between the cousins during this period reveals mutual respect. In the letter to John, Sam wrote, "While our methods may differ, cousin, our purpose is singular, the rights and liberties of our fellow colonists." And John acknowledged in his reply, basically the same. He basically was like, your fire, Samuel, ignites our cause, while prudence ensures it does not consume us. We need both. They both were in agreement. John was like, again, this is, the rogue is more of like, okay, let's just go stab him and fucking kill him when you're dealing with the big bad guy. Whereas the paladin, the lawful good paladins can be like, no. We need to let them know that we're coming to fuck them up, and then we can fuck them up. Those were the two approaches. Same end result, just different ways to go about it. Which is honestly how America is now. So this Continental Congress eventually adopted the Continental Association, which was an agreement to boycott British goods as a unified response to the intolerable acts. And both Adams played instrumental roles in its adoption. Sam with his impassioned arguments and John with his reasoned negotiations. And then we have the battles of Lexington and Concord. And the Revolutionary War really begins here. So April 19, 1775, the quiet towns of Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts became the stage for the first military engagements of the American Revolution. These skirmishes, triggered by British attempts to seize colonial arms and arrest rebel leaders, marked the point of no return in the colony's struggle for independence. And so essentially, before the shot that was heard around the world began, some of the rebel leaders were beginning to gather arms, get support for a military engagement, and they want to start a war, right? So, because the attempt by the British to seize these arms happened, it marked a point of no return for the colonies in their struggle for independence. They basically were brought into war. It started. And the news of the battle spread like wildfire. Sam, upon hearing it, reputedly exclaimed, "What a glorious morning for America." This fucker was ready for battle. He was like, "Oh, let's go, guys. It's time. It's game time, boys." He's like a eager sports player waiting to hop in. And this sentiment captured the mood of many who saw these confrontations as inevitable and the culmination of years of rising tensions and British provocations, which is very true. They had been fucking with them since the 1600s at this point. And Sam, ever the radical, was swift in his endorsement of the colonial militias. He believed the battles validated the patriots' cause and showcased the colony's willingness to stand up against British aggression. In a letter to John Hancock, who was another prominent revolutionary, Sam wrote, "The bravery displayed by our brethren in Lexington and Concord confirms our resolve. This might be the spark that ignites the flames of liberty across all colonies." John Adams, though more moderate in his earlier positions, was equally supportive of the militias post these battles, because he recognized the significance of the moment. He penned in a letter to his wife Abigail, "The die is cast. The Rubicon is crossed. We now live in a new epoch, where the love of liberty and the defense of our rights guide our path." So John viewed the confrontations not as isolated incidents, but as symbolic of the broader colonial struggle for rights and representation. And correspondence between John and Sam were mixed. Both of them shared their Massachusetts heritage, and they would say, like, "Our homeland, through its bravery, has illuminated the path for all colonies." Just kind of being like talking about the war and talking about really like how they appreciate each other and their efforts that they're putting into it. And Sam would do the same with John. And so with the news of Lexington and Concord, it reverberated throughout the colonies and galvanized the support for a revolutionary cause. It was time to fight. It brought together radicals like Sam and moderates like John. So the moderates were now all in. They're like, "No, what? Fuck it. This is complete tyranny. Time to fight." And everyone realized it. So we had the passionate and the advocate and a reasoned advocate for colonial rights as well going into this war. And so in 1776, everyone in America knows this date, we have the Declaration of Independence. That's right, boys. This is where we told the Brits to fuck off, right? So July 4th, now awesome holiday where Americans get hot dogs, we get fireworks, we shoot off our guns, we go, "Yeah, motherfuckers!" It's all because of this shit right here. All because of the Declaration of Independence, right? It was a document that eloquently articulated the colony's grievances and their determination to chart their own destiny. John, by this point, or John Adams, was a leading figure in the Continental Congress. Recognizing his legal acumen and a passionate commitment to the colonial cause, he was appointed to the Committee of Five, tasked with drafting the Declaration. Alongside luminaries like Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, John played a crucial role in shaping the document's content. In his notes from that period, John emphasized the importance of presenting a unified colonial stance. He would say, "The Declaration must not just list our grievances. It must capture the spirit of a people yearning for freedom and sex cults. Everyone wants to be part of a sex cult. It's hot, it's in, I want some sex cults," is what he said. Clearly. Definitely not me just having some fun. So. While Jefferson penned the initial draft, John, along with others, offered revisions and insights, ensuring the document encapsulated the collective aspirations of the colonies. Again, more representative thinking as opposed to general democracy like Athens or Greece had. More of like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. A lot of us agree with him. Send him to make sure the document's done. So that way not everyone's putting in their hands into the pot. It is honestly an overall better system. Could you imagine if we had like 350 million people all writing in ideas and like nothing would fucking get done in America if it was just a straight democracy? But at the same time, we could stand to use some more democratic systems while still utilizing representatives. I don't like that voting isn't as democratic as it should be. I understand laws, but whatever. No, I'm not going to get into that right now. Okay. Sam, on the other hand, though not directly involved in the drafting, was an ardent supporter of the Declaration. His role as a firebrand and vocal critic of British policies had long prepared the ground for this moment. He's the one who got the populace to be like, let's fight, guys. Let's fight, motherfuckers. It was all Sam's doing. This guy knew what he was doing. He knew how to get a crowd. He knew how to get shit started and rolling. And that was kind of like his job. He was the fire starter. So, fellow delegate, Elbridge Gerry, noted in his diary, Samuel's commitment to the cause is unwavering. His speeches resonate with conviction and that bolsters our resolve. So he was out there getting people ready for this shit. So when the time came to sign the Declaration of Independence, both Adams' cousins affixed their signatures, forever linking their names with the birth of a new nation. Samuel, in a letter to a confidant, captured the weight of the moment. Sam said, "By signing this parchment, we pledged not just our names, but our lives and honor to the cause of liberty." Also, fuck John Hancock for just writing his name so big. And of course he went last, like I would have wrote my name just as big. I didn't want to be an asshole, but John was like, okay, I'll be that asshole. And he made it as huge as possible. Fucking dick. Or something like that in his diary. Okay, then John Hancock, by the way. So John Ever, the introspective thinker, wrote to his beloved Abigail, predicting the lasting significance of their actions. Yeah, he would say, "The second day of July, 1776, will be the most memorable epoch in the history of America. It ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other, from this time forever and forevermore." And you bet your fucking ass, John Adams, we've been doing that. We party every year, motherfucker. It is a lit time in America. We got you, bro. We got you from beyond the grave. Your ancestors here in America appreciate what you did. You kicked ass, man. We love to party. We love shooting our guns. Go America. I mean, this shit actually does get me pumped. America's cool in some aspects, but I mean, it's like, I don't think we're like the best country by any means. I like our culture. It's fun. It's fun when it comes to like these sort of events where it's just us celebrating a big W or like a big fuck you to England mostly. But we like flipping off people for basically no reason. I mean, for this one, we had very good reasons to flip off Britain. They fucking sucked. Okay. And so then in 1777, we have the Battle of Saratoga. This was often termed the turning point of the Revolutionary War. This battle was more than a military confrontation. It changed the geopolitical dynamics of the entire conflict. Located in upstate New York, Saratoga became the stage for a crucial showdown between the British forces led by General John Burgoyne and the American troops, under the command of Generals Horatio Gates and Benedict Arnold. The two-part battle, fought in September and October, saw the British Army ultimately surrounded and forced to surrender, marking a significant defeat for the mighty British Empire. The significance of Saratoga was twofold. Militarily, it boosted the morale of the Bellegarde Continental Army and the American populace. Diplomatically, it played a vital role in convincing France to openly support the American cause, shifting the balance in favor of the revolutionaries. Because before they were kind of getting fucked over, Britain was an empire. They had much more resources. I mean, they were drained because of all the other wars they were going through. But by doing this, France saw it as a way to fuck over England more. And they're like, oh, sweet, yeah, I'd love to fuck over. I'd love to fuck over the English. Fuck them. And they love doing that shit. So after we won, they're like, oh, okay, now we can for sure fuck them over. And they sent us some money and some arms and shit, some weapons. It was good. So anyways, Sam Adams, known for his more political maneuvers than military strategy, immediately recognized the importance of the victory. In a letter to fellow revolutionary, Samuel wrote, "The valor displayed at Saratoga has echoed beyond our shores. It is a testament to the spirit and determination of our people. We further stress the need to leverage this victory to garner international support, especially from European powers, wary of Britain's global dominance. And John, who was serving in the Continental Congress, shared in the jubilation. In correspondence with Thomas Jefferson, John remarked Saratoga is not merely a triumph of arms, but a vindication of our cause. The world will now see that we are not mere rebels, but a people determined to secure our rights and liberties. John's keen diplomatic mind immediately turned towards the potential benefits the victory could yield, especially in securing foreign alliances. So in later writings, John reflected on the broader implications of Saratoga. This battle, he noted, did more than defeat an enemy. It brought hope to our allies, dismay our detractors, improved the mettle of our revolutionary spirit. As news of Saratoga spread, both Adams' cousins continued to play their respective roles in the revolutionary endeavor. Sam would keep rallying support on the home front, and John working diligently in the chambers of Congress. The Battle of Saratoga really shifted everything for them and their roles in this war, right? So, because of it, we now get into John's diplomatic missions in Europe. So after the Battle of Saratoga, the United States needed allies, resources, and treaties to ensure its survival and legitimacy on the world stage. So into this crucial role stepped John Adams, appointed as a diplomat to represent American interests in Europe. Between 1778 and 1788, John embarked on a series of diplomatic missions that would solidify his legacy as one of America's foremost statesmen. John arrived in France, joining Benjamin Franklin and Arthur Lee as commissioners. He witnessed Benjamin Franklin getting head as he walked off the boat. He's getting his dick sucked, and Ben was like, come here, my good boy, come here. Let's go ahead and. Wait, John. Let's go secure some shit for people. And John was like, what the fuck, man? Or something like that. I imagine John honestly probably did walk on Ben like fucking quite a bit while they're there. Their primary task was to solidify the Franco-American alliance following the Battle of Saratoga. Paris, the heart of the Enlightenment thinking, was abuzz with intellectuals and court intrigue. John, with his forthright nature and Puritan upbringing, sometimes clashed with the more relaxed and diplomatic approach of Franklin. However, his keen legal mind and unwavering commitment to the American cause proved invaluable in negotiations. Reflecting on his time in Paris, John wrote to Abigail, "The city is a whirlwind of ideas and intrigue, but our purpose remains steadfast. And my dear, if you do not have a painting sent of your tits to me by, I'd say in a few weeks, I'm sorry, but some of these French girls, Ben brings them over and they're in our rooms and they're fucking and I can hear them. And I must say their breasts are quite beautiful to gaze upon, though I try my best to remain loyal to you, my dear. Please have one of our painters send a boudoir of you as soon as possible. Thank you. Bye." Like it was a text or like a voicemail. Could you imagine? Anyways, by 1780, John's diplomatic responsibilities shifted to the Netherlands. That's right. His mission was to secure a loan to fund the American war effort and to gain Dutch recognition of the United States. Sorry. I actually love Dutch people. Not really. Or do I? Or do I not? Anyways, in the canals of Amsterdam and the halls of The Hague, John worked tirelessly, penning the influential Letters from a Pennsylvania Farmer under a pseudonym to sway Dutch public opinion. He manipulated the Dutch people into wanting to work with America, essentially. So his efforts culminated in 1782 when the Netherlands recognized American independence and extended a crucial loan. And after achieving success in the Netherlands, John was appointed as the first American minister to the court of St. James in 1785, marking a symbolic return to the very nation against which the colonies had revolted. Here he navigated the complexities of post-war Anglo-American relations, seeking to establish trade agreements and address lingering issues from the Treaty of Paris that would happen. We'll get into that more a little later. And so I'm skipping over a lot of the war. I'm not going to lie. This isn't necessarily about focusing on each battle and how each battle would happen. This is more or less, again, formulating my argument, but I did want to go over parts of the Revolutionary War. So we're going to go into the Battle of Yorktown, okay? In 1781, we had the siege and subsequent Battle of Yorktown in October of 1781. It marked the climactic end of major combat operations in the American Revolutionary War. Under the combined might of American and French forces led by Generals George Washington and Jean-Baptiste Dontien de Vimont, Comte de Rochambeau, respectively, the British, commanded by General Lord Cornwallis, faced overwhelming odds. After weeks of encirclement and intense fighting, Cornwallis, in a move that stunned both sides of the Atlantic, surrendered his army. And a lot of people argue about exactly why he did this. One theory suggests that a secret space vampire had invaded into Cornwallis's ship and threatened to drink him and his entire family to death and sacrifice them to a dark god named Scrooby-Dooby. Sorry, I'm going to continue that. William Bradford has impacted all of American life since he arrived here on the shores of America. And he's been secretly ruling from Massachusetts. Everyone knows this. Back in the colonies, news of the victory spread rapidly, setting off jubilant celebrations from New Hampshire to Georgia. Samuel Adams, ever the heart of the revolutionary spirit in Boston, was elated. Records from that period detail massive gatherings in city squares, with Sam addressing the crowds. He would say, this victory at Yorktown, he proclaimed, is not just a military triumph, but a vindication of our long-held belief in the justness of our cause. I don't know why I gave him like a southern accent there. He's a good old southern boy. Victory at Yorktown. I mean, you know, it's probably more British, honestly. It's probably more like at the Battle of Yorktown. More Cockney or however the fuck they were speaking. I know the accent had changed by then a little bit, but it's similar enough that they could still speak to each other. It was like kind of. But the American accent did become very distinct during the transition between the 1600s and the 1700s. So who knows? Maybe the Southern accent begun. So Sam would also write to John Hancock, and he would muse that, the sacrifices, the hardships, and the trials we've endured, they all find their purpose and redemption in moments such as these. And across the Atlantic, John Adams, amidst his diplomatic duties, trying to get that loan from, the fucking Dutch, it was the significance of the victory was not lost on him. And understanding that it could likely expedite peace negotiations with Britain, he would write to his wife Abigail. John would say, "The news from Yorktown fills my heart with joy. The long night of uncertainty may finally be giving way to the dawn of peace and independence." And while the two Adams were miles apart, correspondence between them during this period revealed a mutual sentiment of pride and optimism. Samuel wrote of John, "Your efforts in Europe, dear cousin, and our triumphs at home together proclaimed to the world the birth of a nation." And they were definitely the mother fathers of a nation here. They are definitely birthing it. And John in his reply echoed, "The victory at Yorktown is emblematic of our collective spirit. In unity, purpose, and perseverance, we forged a destiny that generations to come shall cherish," which is true. Again, I love 4th of July, and I love hot dogs, and I love American culture to an extent. There's some things I could do away with, right? But overall, it's not bad here. It's not horrible, besides the fucking healthcare system, which is shit. The racism sucks too, and the income inequality, and the economic opportunity is still kind of there. I wouldn't say you're completely fucked there. You still have a good chance if you do work hard and you put a lot of effort into building something. Some of that, though, is really luck based, though. You have to get pretty lucky with it. It's a mixed bag there. I feel like we could have a better system for economics for people to have better prosperity overall. I think, honestly, over the past century, we've been giving way to businesses and economics towards leaning almost towards an oligarchy with how they're able to influence our politics. I'll get into that more in the next few episodes as we get into it. But the Battle of Yorktown, though a military engagement, was a reflection of the broader revolutionary spirit. As the guns fell silent and smoke cleared, the Adams cousins, like their fellow countrymen, stood poised on the threshold of a new era, looking ahead to the challenges and promises of building a nation on the ideals of liberty and democracy. And so ends the Revolutionary War. I am going to go a little bit more. We're going to go into the rise of the Federalist Party after the war. So In the 1780s through the 90s, in the aftermath of the Revolutionary War, as the newly formed United States grappled with the challenges of governance and nation building, we saw the rise of political factions that would shape the country's early political landscape. Chief among these was the Federalist Party, which advocated for a strong central government. John Adams, with his keen legal mind and experiences in Europe, emerged as one of its leading voices. The Articles of Confederation, which had been the country's guiding document post-independence, proved inadequate in addressing various challenges, from financial woes to interstate disputes. Recognizing these limitations calls for a stronger centralized federal system, which then gained momentum. John Adams, having observed the intricacies of European governance during his diplomatic missions, believed in the need for a robust central authority, and in his writings, he argued that without a strong central government, the young nation risked descending into chaos or, worse, becoming vulnerable to foreign interference and essentially then becoming, slaves to another nation again. A confederation of states without a heart, a head, or sinews, John noted in a letter to Thomas Jefferson, will be like a body without life, ineffective and susceptible. Also like a body without a penis. They can't, keep growing and have their prosperity go forward. He definitely didn't write that part, but I think he should have included it. Or at least a womb. He could have said penis or womb, You need to have one of the two. The Constitutional Convention of 1787 in Philadelphia was a turning point. While John was in London and did not attend, his earlier writings, particularly his thoughts on government, influenced many delegates. The result was the United States Constitution, which proposed a more substantial federal structure. And as the 1790s dawned, political debates intensified. The Federalists, under leaders like John Adams, Alexander Hamilton, and John Jay, found themselves often at odds with the Democratic Republicans led by Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, who were wary of too much centralization. Samuel Adams, while not as deeply entrenched in these political skirmishes as his cousin, leaned more towards the Democratic Republican camp, and correspondence between the Adams cousins during this period reflects their respectful disagreements. In one such letter, Sam cautioned John, if you go ahead and continue with the Federalist Party, I'm going to fucking rip off your head, you stupid bitch. To which John replied, well, if you continue with the, Democratic Republican Party, I'm going to kick you in the balls and then rip off your penis. It really foreshadowing how a lot of political groupthink and parties act today, where it's more of a team and less of like political idealism. No. Sam cautioned John, the strength of our nation lies in its people and their liberties. We must tread carefully, lest in our quest for order, we suppress the very spirit that birthed our revolution. And John, in his thoughtful manner, ever the thoughtful one, responded, order and liberty are not adversaries, but allies. A strong central governance ensures the preservation of liberties by providing stability, justice, and a shield against external threats. John, again, being much more practical, and Sam being more like for the people, being like, hey, people should be able to decide whatever the fuck they want to do and let them like make their own, like each city essentially should be able to choose their own laws, but those laws could conflict with other territories' laws, which was a problem. And so by combining both, they were able to kind of fix it and if you have a stronger central government, you can ensure cities aren't going to fuck over other cities. And it's this very delicate and intricate balance system that the founding fathers set up. And the Federalist and Democratic Republican parties, the way that their parties would work would essentially separate into just Democratic and Republican parties, with Democrat being more, again, for the people, being more of, I guess in a lot of ways, Republicans are more like states. Let states decide how they want to act. And Democrats are more like, no, centralize the government and then give all these like liberal policies out that or social policies and stop nowadays against social injustice, whereas Democrats used to be opposite. It flips. And I'll get into that in the next episode. Okay. And then in 1787, John aids in drafting the Massachusetts Constitution. And Massachusetts was during this time in the midst of its own deliberations for it. And so at the heart of the endeavor was John, who, with his deep understanding of governance and law, was called upon to draft the state's foundational document. Again, so like after they, wrote the U.S. Constitution, each state had to elect a representative, and that representative would write the state's document for how that would work. The need for a new constitution in Massachusetts rose from the tumultuous events of Shays' Rebellion that happened in 1786 to 87. And the uprising was led by disgruntled farmers burdened by debt and high taxes. It highlighted the inadequacies of the state's existing charter and the necessity for a more robust framework. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, a special convention was convened in 1787 to draft it. And John was the one who was elected to do it. And despite his busy schedule, national commitments, he felt a deep sense of responsibility to his home state. So he took on the challenge of drafting the Constitution with his characteristic vigor. And drawing inspiration from his previous writings and the Enlightenment ideals he so admired, Adams crafted a document that emphasized the separation of powers, a system of checks and balances, and the protection of individual rights. John was a very much of, like, he doesn't want to fuck over everyone, and he wants to make sure everyone has a fair, equal, balanced system. If anyone was, like, more emblematic of, like, law and justice, it's John. John was, like, the epitome of that for back in the day. Whereas Sam was more of like, fuck that, just do what's morally good. Honestly, I kind of love Sam. Sam was just a very fiery, passionate individual, and John was like very calm, cool, and collected. And they had the same end goals. And I think what made them work is John recognized that Sam was coming from the same place and he wanted the same thing, but he just wanted to get to it a lot quicker than John would. John's like, no, we got to take our time on it to ensure it doesn't fall apart later. But Sam kind of didn't like his initial draft for the overreach that he saw in it. He's like, your draft seeks balance and justice, yet we must always be watchful, ensuring the edifice of government remains the servant and not the master of the people. Basically telling John, like, hey, your document's like a little overreachy here. But it just in his opinion. In all reality, it wasn't all that overreachy, at least in my opinion. But yeah, because John was able to do that, we then in the 1790s have the birth of the Democratic Republican Party, which was a counter to the Federalists. The Federalists essentially capitalized and took over, and it was just a Federalist group. So as the 90s dawned, and it was the political landscape started to undergo significant shifts due to needing to elect new presidents, because Washington had already established, hey, I'm only doing this for this amount of time. I mean, there wasn't a law yet saying you could only be president for X amount of terms, but everyone kind of was respecting it. So central to this transformation was the emergence of the Democratic Republican Party, formed primarily as a counter to the Federalists, who advocated for a strong central government and were closely associated with figures like John and Alexander Hamilton. The Democratic Republicans were champions of states' rights and strict interpretations of the Constitution. Thomas Jefferson and James Madison were the intellectual architects of this new party. They were alarmed by what they saw as Federalist overreach, especially in economic policies and ties to Britain. The Democratic Republicans championed agrarian interests, emphasizing the virtuous yeoman farmer as the backbone of the Republic. They were wary of urbanization and a centralized financial system, fearing it could become a breeding ground for corruption and tyrannical rule. But they were wrong there, because the centralized financial system and everyone having the same finances actually helps the nation's GDP, overall GDP. And having multiple systems can really, it'll just fuck you over in the long run. Really, I think it's what causes the EU to have as many issues as it does, is because they have different monetary systems. If they all just use the same monetary system and it was all standardized, then again, that would be like if just one nation ruled the whole EU. So that might be, whatever. No, it's good. I really, the Democratic Republicans saw each state as like almost its own separate country. And the Federalists were like, no, we need to be unified. We all need to be under one banner, right? And that's what they were fighting back against. So for Sam, the Democratic Republicans' ideals resonated deeply. Sam was a staunch believer in the power of local governance and the need for constant vigilance against potential overreach by centralized authorities. He found a kindred spirit in the party, and the grassroots nature of the Democratic Republicans, with their town hall meetings and emphasis on direct representation, echoed Samuel's revolutionary ideals. In correspondence between the Adams cousins during this period, their differing political affiliations became evident. John, understanding the need for a robust central apparatus to navigate the complexities of nation building, often defended Federalist positions. In one letter to Sam, John wrote, "A fledgling nation, dear cousin, requires a firm hand at the helm, not some pussy-ass little bitch hand that's like, oh, well, I guess I'll let you do whatever you want in the state." without centralized direction, we risk becoming a ship lost at sea. And Sam, ever the revolutionary and instigator at heart, countered in his replies, saying the spirit of our revolution, again, hearkening more like less to like logical, like less of a logical thought process and more of an emotional response, he'd say, was born in town squares and local assemblies. The power of the people, when rooted in their local communities, is the truest safeguard against the encroachments of tyranny. And so this is where we start to see the Democratic Republican kind of back and forth, right? That in these early parties here, this back and forth is what causes the conflicts and what really stagnates America sometimes, because we have these contrasting ideals that we try and have work together, but it's really hard to get it to work together on really big issues, or what we think should be a bigger issue than actually is, and like what we think should just be a federalist issue or like a federal issue instead of like a local issue for states to take care of. And determining that takes a lot of work, a lot of time, and why our nation gets stuck in these like almost like grindy gear halts. And we see this here with these parties getting set up. And it marked the beginning of the 1790s, marked the beginning of America's two-party system that George Washington kind of warned against. He was like, oh, we shouldn't do that, guys. That's going to cause a lot of problems later. But it showcased the nation's ability to house diverse political ideologies under one banner and set the stage for the dynamic interplay between federal and states' rights that would continue to shape American politics for centuries to come. And that is important. We did have these contrasting ideologies, and we did try to make them work together for a long time. And I feel like in modern times, we've begun to stop that. It's less of, hey, how can we get these ideas to work together, and how can we all work together to, get an end result that everyone wants and works for everyone, and more of, hey, you're on this other team, fuck your team, like football stuff. Like you have a rival high school, and you're like, you go egg the rival team's cars, like their cars, because fuck them, because they're the enemy. That is essentially what I feel like American politics has become. And it's really sad. And so here in 1788, going back a little bit, we do have Samuel's skepticism and support for the U.S. Constitution's ratification. He was a skeptic about, ratifying it, thinking like, no, we had it right. This is what gave everyone, what they needed. But, he definitely fought against it. And it also should be noted that in 1789 through 97, John Adams was the vice president. I almost forgot to mention that. So during this time, John Adams was the vice president to George Washington, and he was integral in the role in the drafting and promotion of the U.S. Constitution. And it would cause Sam and him to get into a lot of spats, so to speak. Not necessarily like full-on fights, but they were not necessarily happiest with each other. The role of vice president was very ill-defined in its early days, and Adams himself once referred to the position as the most insignificant office that ever the invention of man contrived, which it still kind of is. Nevertheless, he took his duties seriously, especially as the role of president of the Senate. Here, Adams often cast tie-breaking votes, navigating the Senate through the fledgling republic's myriad challenges. His leadership, although sometimes seen as aloof, was rooted in a profound sense of duty and an unwavering commitment to the young nation. So John definitely knew. I feel like his arguments make more sense. Like he knew what he was talking about. He was a political star and had risen further by 1797. So with Washington's decision to step down after 2 terms, the presidency was up for grabs. And the election was a testament to the divisions already emerging in American politics because of this two-party systems. And so as a Federalist, John Adams believed in a strong centralized government, which put him at odds with Thomas Jefferson quite a bit. And Thomas and John Adams were butting heads just as much as him and Sam were. Adams would ultimately win the presidency by a narrow margin, making him the second president of the United States. His tenure was marked by significant international challenges, especially the looming threat of war with France, because, there's a bunch of shit going on over there. Some money was owed. The controversial Alien and Sedition Acts passed during his administration were a response to these external pressures, but also reflected the internal tensions and partisan divides growing within the U.S. His presidency, while marked by the integrity and a steadfast commitment to the nation, wasn't without its controversies. These two acts, the alien and sedition ones in particular, were heavily criticized for curbing individual freedoms, leading to accusations that Adams was overreaching his powers. And throughout his vice presidency and presidency, John remained deeply engaged in the nation's evolving political discourse. He would correspond with everyone. He talked with everyone. Like he knew he wasn't going to get everything right. You know, he was like, I'm going to fuck up here and there, but just work with me, guys. Just work with me. But let me kind of explain these acts, right? So the Alien Friends Acts, the law essentially gave the president the power to deport any non-citizen believed to pose a threat to national security, which I will say is definitely an overreach, right? So at a time of uncertain international allegiances and fears of foreign espionage, this act was defended as a necessary precaution. Which maybe for its time, I mean, like we could even argue today with espionage that it's still necessary, but that is like some kingly, kick him out of the community, deport him, shit. I guess like in a way, if you can't prove that you're a citizen, and we have made it much easier to prove that you're a citizen, you can get deported. It's just, I don't know. But then we also have the Alien Enemies Act, which was taking the previous act further. This law permitted the detention of male citizens from a hostile nation during times of war, even if they weren't suspected of espionage or treason. This would get used during World War II. Or like they used it as like an excuse, like, hey, like they had this set up. I mean, these acts would be repealed later, but they would bring it up and be like, hey, we could totally do this again. Like, if the founding fathers thought it was okay, we should definitely do that. And they detained Japanese citizens, even if they weren't suspected of espionage or treason, which is fucking crazy. And then we had the Naturalization Act. This extended the residency requirement for immigrants seeking U.S. citizenship from 5 to 14 years, it was a clear attempt to limit the influence of foreigners in American politics. They wanted their buddies to stay in power, and they didn't want to have foreign influence affect American politics, which I guess for an early nation, it makes sense, right? Especially a very young nation like that. 5 years is not a long time for, being able to influence politics like that. And 14 years definitely heavily reduced it and would give people, at least if people were sent here, more time to get accustomed to how the culture works. So I kind of agree with it to a degree. It's still kind of fucked, but overall, I get it. And then we have the Sedition Act, which was the most controversial of all. The act made it a crime to publish false, scandalous, and malicious writings against the government or its officials. It was a clear violation of the First Amendment, and it curbed freedom of speech and the press. It was fucked up. And yeah, no, it's, that was more of like, I feel like people were starting to get their feelings hurt, and that's why it was made. And I think John was starting to get his feelings hurt over time because like he was trying to be a nice guy. He was doing everything by what he viewed as justice. And like, the law, and a lot of people were arguing against him. And so, there is a very sinister motive here. The Democratic Republicans, led by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, viewed the acts as targeted attacks against them, aimed at silencing the opposition to the Federalist-led government of John Adams, because Thomas and James were vehemently against John's ideas of a centralized government. And they would, make up stories about him, and they would it's like say, oh, he's having an affair. Oh, he's doing this. He's doing this. It's very tabloid-esque era, and very reminiscent of what would go on later in our nation's history. But that brings us to the end, really, of today's historical quarrel. I definitely got everything that I wanted to talk about out here about the births of the two-party system now. And in the next episode, we're going to be going over much more, all the way up to the Civil War, probably even beginnings of the 1900s. So get ready for that. And let's close out today's historical quarrel. All right, everyone. Woo! We did it, guys. We got to the very end of the episode. Congrats. You guys should give yourselves a pat on the back. That was a fucking long one. I know this is either close to the longest episode. I actually didn't even get through all of my notes. I was going to save some of it for my next episode. Some of the John Adams and Sam Adams story will continue next episode. My overall review on this is really I'd say the stories of John and Sam are very integral to the chapters of America's early political evolution, right? They're differing approaches, even though they came from like the same Puritan background, and they're basically split in concepts of like how it should be viewed. Whereas like I feel like John took more of like an Enlightenment approach, and then Sam was more of the Great Awakening approach. Like the Great Awakening definitely I feel like influenced him more about like the individual freedoms and rights, and Enlightenment was more of like this logical, like, hey, these systems should be in place. Like these systems are better. Overall, like they came together to want to do something, better for the people. And I think their stories and like the way their paths diverged really brought about how America would change and develop this two-party system. And it was just super interesting to me. I had a fun time writing this out. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the Bon Jovi song. I had some fun writing that. That was a good time. I was going to get a buddy of mine potentially to see if he could do a rendition of it. A rendition of the Rebel Yell on the banjo, because I couldn't get one with where it's just banjo. I just wanted to have like a banjo be playing instead of like the whole drums and kit and caboodle with it. And then I was gonna try and do like an accent with it, but then I was like, nah, just sing along to it, but like use the lyrics you wrote down. And so that's what I did. So I hope you enjoyed that. I'm gonna put it, like I do with other episodes. I'll just have it go after the outro music for the show. You guys can listen to it if you want. And if you don't want to, then you can skip past it and then you don't have to deal with it. So go you. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think. What are your thoughts on it? Did you learn anything new? Did any of my, I guess, asides kind of resonate with you? Is there any thoughts that you guys have on it or anything that I missed? Thanks to Mike Ritz. Again, he kind of pointed out to me I totally spaced on talking about the Aristotle bean cum theory. And so that's why I kind of included it in today's episode. I just thought, I was like, shit, I did. That was a missed opportunity because the Roman Catholics totally believe that like that to be the culmination of scientific thought, essentially. I was like, damn, you're right. And so I just kind of included it in here. I didn't go into the intricacies of it, obviously. So sorry, Mike. Next time. Even though, he's a fan of the show, he's also very talented and he's a business owner. You guys need to go check out his website when you can. Let me pull up the name here, actually, for you guys so I can do that real quick. But like while I'm looking that up, I've been having a really good time doing this show. I've been having a lot of fun. It definitely takes up a lot of time, though, guys. I do want that to be stated quite a bit here because I am definitely starting to get not burnt out, but like it's just hard for me to find the time necessary to make this show as good as possible. And I'm starting to realize really the only way that I am going to be able to do that is if this show starts to get up in popularity and I'm able to, have it pay for itself at the very least, have it pay for that. By the way, Mike Ritz's website is www.newbeliefstudio.com. So go check that out when you can. He's really cool. He does a lot of really cool art. So, I always give people shout outs if they ask me to, by the way. So if you want me to give you your business shout out, talk to me. Basically just give me a chance to get to know you so I can make sure you're not like a complete asshole or like weird, like too weird. And I'll give your stuff a shout out, man. Even if you do a show of your own, I love talking to people. So, but so with me saying that, really about the show, if you found any value of this, whether even it's just like it was solely comedic value and the information, while it may have seemed almost repetitive, was delivered in a way that it made it easier to digest for you, please leave a review. Let me know stuff that I can improve in the review. You don't have to just give it 5 stars. Give it an honest, give it your honest rating as to what the show is. I do not want people who just listen to just blindly be like, well, he wants me to give him 5 stars. And, if I'm going to talk to him, I can't just like, I'm not giving him 5 stars. No, dude, you can hate my shit and I'll talk to you. My wife doesn't like my show all the time. So I don't care. Like, tell me what I do wrong. Give me stuff to improve. I take it to heart. I'm not going to just sit here and be like, well, fuck you then. Like, no. I'm human, man. I'm going to forget stuff. And that's okay. So, but if like, honestly, guys, for the growth that we have had, thank you so much. I appreciate it so much. I love having listeners. It's honestly really cool to have someone appreciate your work and, your art that you do. Because for me, this definitely is a form of art. It's a form of expression. And it's been a wild ride for me. So, and yeah, I already know this episode's like really fucking long, 2 hours. I try to keep it under 2 hours typically, and we're nearing the 2 hour and 30-minute mark. So, but I'm going to keep talking to you because I don't care. I don't care. I do have to go to the gym after this, and then I have to go record Hard Homies podcast after I'm done doing the editing of this. But sorry, I'm talking about my personal life. I've been on a weight journey lately. I went from 290, I got down to 215, went back up to like 230-ish, 240. But I didn't like get bigger. I stayed slim. So talking with the nutrition, I guess like I just was putting on muscle at the same time because I was doing a lot of weightlifting and my body was just acclimating to its size. And so the muscle growth equaled about the same amount of fat lost, I guess, which is cool. So I guess that's good. So as I slim down, I'll have some muscle that's on there. That'll be nice. So I've been on a weight loss journey essentially, and it's been fun. I'm trying to get back down to where I was at during my wedding. I want to get back under 170. So that's going to take a lot of effort, but I've actually gained and lost a lot of weight before in my past when I was younger. So I know I can do it. I've been doing good for about 2 months for working out on the diet. I've been doing good for about like 5 months total now. So it's like I'm on there. I think I got a little sick this over the weekend, but I'm going to continue running and stuff because I can't let the sickness hinder where I'm at. Perseverance. That's the American spirit, guys. Let's get it. Good God. But yeah, let me know. Let me know how I can improve. Email me if you have suggestions for quarrels that you want me to go over too. Anything in history. Typically, I try to stay behind the 1900s. Like, so anything pre-1900s is usually fair game. Like, if you really want me, if like enough listeners really want me to do the World Wars one day, or like even just certain battles of the World Wars, I'll do it. And those will probably be shorter episodes because this isn't going to be as intricate. It's going to be more of me breaking down how the battle worked and why certain tactics were used, or like, for instance, for this, where I'm like kind of arguing a point as to like why this thing developed. Like the Democratic and Republican Party. I'm talking about like how it developed and why these structures became the way they are and why they're so conflicting with each other and contrasting. And I feel like I've really emphasized that this episode, especially where like, hey, like these guys are like, hey, no, we need to have a strong central. And, these guys are like, no, for the people need to decide like everything they do, even if that fucks with other people. People are like, no, that's going to fuck too much with the country. So, and it's kind of what the Puritan governance of like their church essentially led into for American governance, which is really cool. I know it's really cool how it developed over time from this religiously held beliefs and ideals into now political beliefs and ideals. So, and then, the next couple episodes, we're going to really be getting into their conflict with each other, with the Democratic Party and the Republican Party going at it in the Civil War. That's going to be like the main quarrel of it. And then I haven't decided if this is just going to be a 3-part series or a 4-part series where the 4th part's more of like a gentle fade away slash talk about like maybe the other how extremism has been starting to begin in America and how that's worked out and why it's been that way. Where I go maybe episode 4 and 5 in this series with it. We'll see. I haven't fully decided yet. And maybe I just do it later and I do more modern stuff. But with the show being called Historical Quarrels, I do want to try and stay pretty into history in those terms. Also, I've been working on refining my true crime approach. So I think what I'm going with now and what I've determined is I am better at making up stories. So if I'm going to do a true crime-esque history episode, I'm going to completely rewrite a folktale or I guess legend about a true crime-esque history story. Like there's this legend about a guy who gets his head cut off and then the head infects him with like a disease. So for that, like I'd probably just rewrite it into like this ghost haunting him. And, you know, I'd write my own stories, my own characters. So those episodes are going to take way longer to do. I'm talking, you'll probably get those like once in a while, maybe like once in every 3 months. So maybe once every 12 episodes, you'll get one of those off. If they become wildly popular, might hire some writers to help me get them out quicker. Hopefully they can mimic my voice and style. And then as I review and edit them, I can make sure it fits. And so I can pop this off a little more frequently, like once a month instead of like once every 3 months. We'll see though. I can't even promise once every 3 months right now because shit's hard to write. And, you know, I want it to fit. I want it to get to the level of quality that I feel like I can write. And if I feel rushed, I'm definitely not doing my best. So. But yeah, I appreciate you guys so much. I've noticed the YouTube channel is kind of picking up a little more. I do plan on adding a video element soon. Plan on getting a webcam soon and figuring out how to do audio, video syncing and editing, which I think I just have to use like a software to record the video and audio at the same time. I probably could get like a Rodecaster or something and then just use an XLR format instead of the USB setup I have for my Shure mic. Oh yeah, and that's right. Sorry. For all of you podcast purists, I do use USB currently because that's just what I can afford with my setup. Like I said, I mean, if you guys want to subscribe to my Patreon and support me more, hopefully over time that'll amount enough where I can get a better setup. But until such time, I can't, man. I got other stuff to take care of. You know, I got a job and you gotta do what you gotta do, man. This is definitely more of like I love doing this. This is a passion project for me, but it's not. It's a priority. It's a priority because I feel like it's growing and it could turn into something that I could potentially maybe turn into a career. That would be really cool. I'd love to do this for like a job. That'd be awesome. Like if I could spend instead of like my time at work, I could just put towards this. Oh, dude, the things I would do for this show. Whew, I have a ton of ideas. Definitely would be getting a studio set up. I'd be hiring someone other than Danny to do the editing. And Danny's just going to be like a joke name. I was going to do this whole bit where with the emails and stuff, but I'll probably save that for a later time. I'll work on that slowly. Well, actually, here, I'll read off a couple of the emails because I did get a really nice email from a couple people. It was really nice, very cool, very cool. Very much enjoyed it. We had Mike Dredgton write in, not Mike Ritz, different Mike, but he essentially said, whoops, wrong script. I pulled up a different script than I needed to pull up for this. I probably could go to my emails, but I don't have my email open for Historical Quarrels, so my bad. But he said, Dear Titillating Tyler, which, by the way, love that name. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. Love this week's episode. Tim's mom is a cunt, and I hate her. That's all. Keep up the good work. Lots of hate for Tim's mom. I did get a few people writing in saying how much they're like, yeah, Tim Tim's mom's a fucking bitch. Just like a short thing. I even had some people on Reddit just reach out to me and talk to me like that. So, and then, there's a guy named Mark, who wrote on saying, started listening to your show last week. Really hope you'll read this out next episode. Yeah, of course I'm going to, read it out. Let Tim Tim's mom know that she's a bitch when I think about her. Thanks for the entertainment and lesson on America's origin. So you're welcome, Mark. Yeah, I'm glad you hated the hypothetical bitch as well. So that was, that's cool. That's cool, man. So yeah, no, if you guys write it, I will read them out. I'll talk to you guys. And I responded back with these people already. So, like I talk to you. Don't worry. It's not going to be like a weird, I'm too good to talk to my fans sort of thing. Like, I hate people that do that. That's weird to me. That's like, why? Why not? Like, it's cool to talk to your fans. They can give you ideas. And if they're your listeners, you get to know, who your audience is and, really like how you should approach your marketing strategy and how you can grow your show and like make it better. Because really, I can fit my humor in because like if you guys want, here's one thing. If you like the show, you're going to enjoy my sense of humor and my style or my approach for the show, right? That doesn't necessarily have to change. Like I don't have to do 180 on that. I'm not trying to impress some rando that I'm just showing the show immediately. I'm trying to get to the group that already enjoys this style of content. And then from there, I can make tweaks and changes to it. Add a little more editing here, do a little more there. Bam. Great show. I have a much better show overall. And that's what I want to do. Those are the conversations I want to have with you guys. So, but yeah, that'll do it for today. So thank you guys for listening. Again, please leave a review or a like on Apple Podcasts. Well, I guess not like, but leave a review on Apple Podcasts. I want to get up to 100 reviews. I want to try and, if I can, get up to 1,000 reviews eventually. But 100 right now, I feel like is a reasonable goal, right? So from where we're at, I have 6 reviews on Apple. I know I have way more listeners than that, more than 6 people. So if you guys can, if you don't have Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or if you have Spotify, leave a review on there. Just do what you can if you enjoy it, right? Like just helps me know like I'm doing a good job, or helps me know that I'm not doing a good job in certain areas, or maybe I'm being too political. I'm not being political enough. If you want me to be more political, I can definitely do that. I can definitely be a lot more assertive. I feel like I'm kind of making some statements here and there with my thoughts. Definitely not definitive and inflammatory statements, but I am definitely making statements. Some people might argue it's inflammatory if you're rich, I guess. But, sorry, I'm rambling now. I know I'm rambling. This is the last bit of the episode. After this, you just have the music and then whatever funny bits I do at the end, like I do with the other show. So, yeah, you guys have a good one. Spread the quarrels, spread the love, spread the hatred and violence as well. History is full of violence and dark and terror, and everyone should have to experience this. So spread the show with people that you want to scare the shit out of. Thank you. That's all. Love you guys. Bye.
so our fields, neath the watcher's eyes, underneath the free, unbridled skies. The royal decree, meaningless hymn. In the heart of the highlands, its echo grows dim. With a vehement cry, through the forest we bow. To preserve our liberty, to no crown will bow. The star rebels, in shadows we stand. Divine edicts from a distant land. They're the kings of men sail with wind so fleet. They'll not quench the fire nor concede our defeat. Through secret whispers our rebellion grows. In every valley sturdy resistance flows. Threads of liberty weave through us all, bound not by a king, but a freedom call. Our souls not tethered by a golden throne. In the Appalachian peaks, our seeds are sown. In the Appalachian peaks, our seeds are sown. With a vehement cry, through the forest we bow. To preserve our liberty, to the ground we'll bow. Starward rebels, in shadows we stand. Divine edicts from a distant land. The dancer, you want more, 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 more. We got a little angel. One more, 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 more.